The wheels of Latifah's suitcase clicked against marble floors, each sound sharp in the pre-dawn quiet. 5 in the morning. The penthouse hallway stretched ahead, lit only by city lights bleeding through tall windows. She moved fast, jaw tight, not looking back at the bedroom door she'd closed 10 minutes ago. In that bedroom, Royce Townsend jerked awake. The sound was wrong, wheels on marble, moving away. He knew that pattern. His chest went cold. His voice cracked in the darkness. No answer, just the fading clicks growing distant. He threw off the covers and reached for his wheelchair. Empty space. He'd left it across the room after therapy, trying to prove something to himself. Now it sat 15 feet away, might as well have been 15 miles. The clicking stopped. An elevator button chimed. No. He gripped the edge of the bed, pulled himself to sitting. His legs hung useless, the familiar weight of them suddenly unbearable. The elevator doors would open any second. She'd step inside. She'd disappear. He looked at the wall, 8 feet to the doorframe. He'd done it once in therapy, with bars, with help, with time. Never alone. Never like this. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Royce slid from the bed, caught himself on the nightstand. His arms shook already. Didn't matter. He pressed his palm flat against the wall and pulled. This is a short, straight story about love that fights. If you believe real love takes work, please like and comment now. It helps YouTube. Share this story with others who need hope. One hand forward, shoulder burning, then the other hand. His right foot dragged an inch. Progress. The doorframe seemed to move further away with each attempt. Latifah. Her name tore from his throat. Down the hall, her finger hovered over the elevator button. That voice, raw, desperate, nothing like the controlled businessman she'd married 8 months ago. Her hand trembled. The elevator doors began to close. She stuck her foot between them. In the bedroom, Royce's left knee buckled. He caught himself, forehead pressed to the wall, breathing hard. The cotton of his t-shirt stuck to his back. Every muscle screamed to let go, sink down, except what his body had become 3 years ago in that accident. He thought of her face last night. The way she'd stared at her wedding ring like it was a chain. The way she'd said, "I can't do this anymore," so quietly he'd pretended not to hear. His hand moved forward again. Another inch. Another. The elevator door stood open, waiting. Latifah gripped her suitcase handle until her knuckles went white. Just step inside. End this. Stop pretending love could grow from a business contract. But that voice, that broken sound of her name. She let the doors close without her. Royce heard the elevator doors close. His heart hammered against his ribs. Had she gone? The silence stretched, broken only by his ragged breathing. Then, footsteps. Not rolling wheels. Footsteps coming back. He pushed harder, fingernails digging into paint. His physical therapist would call this reckless. His doctors would list every reason this could damage his progress. None of them understood. When you lose someone who sees you as more than your limitations, you don't calculate risks. You move. His right hand found the doorframe. Victory. He pulled himself around the corner, legs dragging, and saw her. Latifah stood 20 feet away in the hallway, suitcase abandoned by the elevator. She wore jeans and the old Columbia University sweatshirt she'd brought from Queens. No designer clothes, no diamonds except the wedding ring she'd probably leave on the kitchen counter. Don't. The word came out rough. He pressed his shoulder against the frame, trying to look stronger than he felt. Please. Royce, get your chair. Her voice broke on his name. You'll hurt yourself. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're... She took a step forward, then stopped. This isn't fair. You can't do this. Do what? He shifted his weight, found a few more inches of stability. Fight for my wife? I'm not your wife. The words hit like cold water. I'm an employee with a ring. We both know that. His left hand slipped. He caught himself, muscle memory from 1,000 falls. Is that what you think? That's what I know. Tears ran down her face now, no attempt to hide them. Your mother made it clear. The board made it clear. Every single person at every event we attend makes it clear. I'm the gold digger who got lucky. I don't care what they think, but I do. The words exploded out. I care that your own mother thinks I'm counting days until the contract ends. I care that photographers follow me to my mother's care facility. I care that... His knee gave out. The fall happened fast. His grip loosened, legs crumpled, shoulder hit the marble hard. He bit back the sound trying to escape, but she heard it anyway. She always heard what he tried to hide. Royce. She ran, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands fluttered over his shoulder, his face, checking for damage. Why would you? What were you thinking? He caught her hand, held it tight. I was thinking I'd rather fall 1,000 times than watch you leave. Stop. She tried to pull away. He held on. I was thinking about Sunday mornings. His voice steadied. When you read to me from your father's poetry, how you do different voices for each character, how you laugh at your own jokes before you finish telling them. Royce, I was thinking about Tuesday nights, when you think I'm asleep and you sing in the shower, Portuguese songs your mother taught you. You stop mid-verse sometimes and I know you're crying, missing her voice. Her breath hitched. You never said, I was thinking about that night last month. His thumb traced her knuckles. When the storm knocked out power, we sat by the window watching lightning over Central Park. You told me about your father, how he died when you were 12, how he used to say you were his fighter. You are, Latifah. You fight for everyone except yourself. She shook her head, tears falling faster. This isn't real. We signed papers. We made a deal. Look at me. He waited until her eyes met his. I'm on the floor in my hallway at 5 in the morning because my wife is leaving. I can't feel my legs on a good day, and I just tried to walk without help for the first time in 3 years. Does this look like a business arrangement to you? But the contract, burn it. He pulled himself to sitting, back against the wall. Burn it all. The prenup, the postnup you're signed, every piece of paper that says this is temporary. I'll call the lawyers right now. Your father's will. I'll lose the company. He said it simply, like discussing weather. Townsend Meridian goes to the board. I keep my trust fund, enough to live on. We'll get a smaller place, maybe Queens, near your mother. She stared at him. You'd give up everything? Everything? He laughed, short and sharp. Latifah, I'm sitting on cold marble in my underwear, begging the only woman who's ever looked at me like I'm whole to stay. You are everything. The rest is just noise. Have you ever fought this hard for someone? Tell me in the comments. She covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders shook. When she finally looked up, her eyes held something new. I can't be the reason you lose your company. You're the reason I want to keep it. He reached up, touched her face. Not for my father's legacy, not for the board, for us, for what we could build together, but only if you want to build it with me. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be enough. You already are. He pulled her close, and she came, folding into his chest. You've always been enough. I'm the one who needs to prove I deserve you. They sat on the cold floor, holding each other. Her tears soaked his shirt. His hand tangled in her hair. Neither moved. Neither wanted to. I'm scared, she admitted against his shoulder. Me too. He pressed his lips to her temple. Stay anyway? She pulled back, studied his face. Whatever she found there made her nod. Okay. Help me understand this is real. Show me every day, and I'll stay. He kissed her then, soft and certain. When they broke apart, she helped him to his wheelchair. He didn't protest. They'd both fought hard enough for one morning. As she pushed him back to their room, he caught her hand. The suitcase? Can wait. She squeezed his fingers. We have time. They did. 6 weeks later, violin strings trembled in the morning air of Central Park. The bow bridge stretched over calm water, decorated with simple white roses and baby's breath. No grand ballroom, no 500 guests, just 40 people who actually knew their names, their story, their truth. Royce stood at one end of the bridge, both hands gripping a polished wooden cane. His brother James hovered close, ready to catch him if needed. The April sun caught the silver threads in Royce's dark hair, more than before the accident, but he wore them without shame now. You good? James whispered. Better than good. Royce's eyes fixed on the path where she'd appear. His legs shook slightly, but not from weakness. Anticipation. The string quartet shifted to Pachelbel's canon. Guests turned in their white folding chairs. Elena, their housekeeper, dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Marcus, their chef, held his daughter on his lap, whispering for her to watch. Latifah's mother sat in the front row, wheelchair positioned for the best view. Lucid enough today to understand her daughter was getting married. Again, properly this time. Then Latifah appeared. She wore ivory silk that moved like water, nothing like the stiff designer gown from their first wedding. Her father's watch hung from her bouquet, white orchids and eucalyptus. No veil. She wanted to see everything clearly. But what made guests gasp wasn't the dress or flowers. It was Royce. He took a step forward, then another. The cane supported him, but he moved under his own power, closing the distance between them. Each step deliberate, earned through months of grueling therapy, through falls and frustration in getting back up. Latifah's cousin Maria had been ready to walk her down the aisle. Instead, Latifah touched Maria's arm gently and walked forward alone. Her eyes never left Royce's face. They met in the middle of the bridge. "Hi," she whispered, tears already starting. "Hi back." He freed one hand from the cane, touched her cheek. "You came. You walked. I promised I would." Behind them, Vivian Townsend pressed a tissue to her eyes. She wore soft blue instead of her usual severe black. The grandmother's bracelet caught sunlight on her wrist. She'd asked to wear it today before passing it on. A blessing, finally. The officiant, Dr. Patricia Williams from the rehab center, smiled at them both. "Shall we begin?" Royce nodded, then spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Before we do, I need to say something." He turned to face their small gathering. 8 months ago, I married this woman in a courthouse. No flowers, no music, no joy, just signatures and fear. A few guests shifted, uncomfortable with the honesty. I was drowning in my father's expectations, in a body that wouldn't cooperate, in the belief that I had nothing real to offer anyone. His voice strengthened. Latifah Santos saved me, not from the wheelchair, not from the company, from myself, from the lie that love had to be earned through perfection. He turned back to her. "You asked me to show you every day that this is real, so here's day 42, in front of everyone who matters to us. No contracts, no conditions, just truth." Latifah's tears fell freely now. She handed her bouquet to Maria and took both his hands, helping him balance without making it obvious. "My turn," she said. 8 months ago, I was drowning too. In bills, in fear, in the weight of watching my mother fade. I thought I was selling my future for her comfort. Instead, I found someone who sees me, not the poor girl from Queens, not the woman who serves coffee for tips. Me. She looked at their guests. "People will always talk. They'll say I married him for money. They'll say he married me for pity. Let them. We know the truth. Love isn't a transaction. It's a choice, and I choose him. Every difficult day, every small victory, every time." Dr. Williams cleared her throat gently. "I think we can skip my opening remarks. You've said it better than I could." Soft laughter rippled through the gathering. "Royce, your vows?" He steadied himself, spoke from memory. "Latifah Santos, you read poetry in different voices and make me laugh until my ribs hurt. You sing off-key in the shower and think I don't notice. You fight for everyone you love with the fury of a lioness. You brought music back into my silent rooms. I vow to earn your trust every morning, to celebrate your victories like my own, to hold you through every storm, to stand beside you, literally when I can, figuratively when I can't, to choose us, especially on the days when choosing is hard. You are my unexpected gift, my stubborn love, my home." "Latifah?" "Doctor," Williams prompted gently. "Royce Townsend, you pretend to hate romantic comedies but quote them when you think I'm not listening. You practice walking at 3 a.m. because you don't want me to see you struggle. You gave up everything you'd built to keep me, then built it back stronger so we'd have something to share." Her voice wavered, strengthened. "I vow to see you, not your limitations. To push you when you need pushing, rest when you need rest. To dance with you whether you're standing or sitting. To build a life where contracts don't matter because trust does. To love you on the easy days and fight for you on the hard ones. You are my safe place, my best surprise, my choice." "The rings?" "Doctor," Williams asked. James stepped forward with 2 simple gold bands. Not the platinum from before. These were engraved inside, still choosing you. They exchanged rings with steady hands. The metal warmed against their skin. "By the power vested in me by the state of New York, and more importantly by the power of love that refuses to quit, I pronounce you husband and wife. Again. Properly this time." "Doctor," Williams grinned. "Kiss your bride, Mr. Townsend." He leaned the cane against his hip, framed her face with both hands, and kissed. Her like a man who'd almost lost everything and knew exactly what he'd saved. She kissed him back like a woman who'd stopped running and found home. Applause erupted. Maria whistled. Elena sobbed openly. Latifa's mother smiled, present enough to know her daughter was happy. As they turned to face their guests, Royce wobbled slightly. Latifa steadied him without hesitation, his arm around her shoulders, hers around his waist. They walked back down the bridge together, slow but sure. But to understand why this moment meant everything, the narrator's voice carried over the scene. We need to go back 8 months. The camera pulled back, showing the bridge, the water, the city beyond. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, walking toward a future they'd build one day at a time. Together. Order up, Latifa. The bell chimed, and Latifa Santos wiped sweat from her forehead with her forearm. 12 hours into a double shift at Manny's Diner in Queens, and the Saturday dinner rush showed no signs of slowing. She balanced 3 plates on her left arm, a coffee pot in her right hand, and somehow managed to smile at Table 7's complaints about cold eggs. Coming right back with fresh ones, ma'am, she promised, sliding plates in front of the construction crew at Table 9. Behind the counter, Manny shook his head. You've been here since 6 this morning. Go home. Can't. She refilled coffee mugs mechanically. Need the hours. You're gonna collapse, girl. She just smiled. Collapsing wasn't an option. Not when her mother's care facility cost $4,800 a month. Not when the rent on her tiny apartment was 3 weeks overdue. Not when her old Honda needed new brake pads before it killed her on the BQE. A drop of grease splashed from the grill onto her wrist. The small burn flared hot, joining a constellation of similar marks that dotted her forearms. Kitchen badges of honor, her father used to call them, before the cancer took him 4 years ago, leaving behind nothing but medical debt and his old watch. Hot plates, corner table. Manny called. At 2 a.m., the diner finally emptied. Latifa slumped into a booth, counting tips with methodical precision. Singles and fives spread across the vinyl tabletop, many stained with ketchup or coffee. Some customers were generous. Most weren't. She'd learned to gauge wallets by shoes, to adjust her smile and attention accordingly. 1 to a 23. She rubbed her eyes. Plus base makes 185. Not enough. Never enough. Manny dropped a paper bag beside her. Leftover pie. Take it home. I can't keep. You didn't take it. I pushed it on you. Big difference. He jingled his keys. Need a ride? No thanks. Subway's fine. She couldn't afford the kindness. It made her feel poorer somehow. Outside, Queens Boulevard glowed with bodega lights and taxi signs. The early October air bit at her face, already hinting at the winter to come. She clutched her coat closer, the same wool blend she'd worn for 6 years, patched at the elbows, missing the bottom button. The 7 train rattled above, dropping shadows across her path. As she climbed the stairs to the platform, her phone vibrated. Mount Sinai Hospital. Her stomach tightened. Hello? Miss Santos? It's Nurse Patel from the memory care unit. Your mother had a difficult evening. She became agitated during dinner, asking for your father. Latifa closed her eyes. Did you give her the photo? Yes, but she insisted he was coming to take her home. We had to administer a mild sedative. I'll be there tomorrow. She swallowed hard. First thing. There's something else, Miss Santos. The pause stretched. The financial office asked me to remind you about the outstanding balance. Of course they did. I'm working on it. I just need... They're requesting payment by the end of the month, or they'll need to discuss alternative placement options. Alternative placement options. The bureaucratic way of saying her mother would be moved to a state facility. One with fewer staff, more patients, and locked wards that smelled of urine and industrial cleaner. Tell them they'll have it. She didn't know how. She just knew failure wasn't an option. The train arrived, nearly empty this late. She found a seat and leaned her forehead against the cool window, watching Queens blur into darkness as they moved underground. Her reflection stared back. Dark circles under brown eyes, hair pulled, tight into a practical bun, skin that had forgotten how to glow. 27 years old. Felt like 50. Her apartment sat above a laundromat on 35th Avenue. The constant hum of machines vibrated through thin floors, a white noise she'd learned to tune out. She climbed 4 flights, each step an effort against gravity and exhaustion. A yellow paper was taped to her door. Notice of eviction. 72 hours to vacate. All belongings remaining will be removed. She tore it down, hands shaking. 3 months behind. She'd begged the landlord last week. Promised payment by the 15th. Today was the 12th. Inside, the studio apartment held little worth taking. A mattress on the floor, a folding table with one chair, a hot plate that sparked when used, a small bookshelf with her father's poetry collection and medical, textbooks from the community college classes she'd had to abandon. On her nightstand sat her father's watch, an old Timex, nothing fancy, the leather band cracked with age, the face scratched from years of hard work. He'd worn it every day of his life, from Portugal to New York, through factory jobs and taxi driving, through marriage and fatherhood. "What would you do, Pi?" she whispered, picking it up. The weight felt right in her palm. Solid, real. How do I fix this? The watch ticked steadily, offering no answers. She checked her bank account on her phone. $347.82. Not enough for rent. Not enough for her mother's care. Not enough for anything except maybe another week of food and subway fare. Her options lined up like dominoes ready to fall. Ask Manny for an advance. Take out another payday loan at criminal interest. Sell her father's watch and books. None solved the real problem. There simply wasn't enough money coming in. She'd applied for better jobs. Receptionist positions, office assistants, even retail. But without a college degree, without connections, without the right clothes for interviews, doors remained firmly closed. The radiator kicked on with a metallic groan, pushing lukewarm air into the room. She changed into an oversized t-shirt and sat cross-legged on her mattress, pulling her mother's medical bills from a folder. $17,246.83. Outstanding. The numbers blurred as tears filled her eyes. She blinked them away. Crying didn't pay bills. Tomorrow, she promised herself. Something will change tomorrow. She set her alarm for 5 a.m. Another double shift waited. She placed her father's watch beside her pillow, a talisman against despair, and closed her eyes. Sleep came quickly, the exhausted, dreamless kind that never felt like enough. In 6 hours she'd wake, put on the same uniform, serve the same coffee, count the same insufficient tips. Unless something changed. Unless tomorrow really was different. Tuesday morning brought rain. Latifah wiped down counters with methodical precision, avoiding the crack near the register that always caught her rag. Breakfast rush had ended, leaving the diner in that strange lull before lunch. 3 regulars nursed coffees at the counter. A young couple shared pancakes in the corner booth. Normal. The bell above the door chimed. Not normal. The man who entered wore a charcoal suit that cost more than her yearly rent. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, leather portfolio tucked under one arm. His shoes clicked against the linoleum, Italian leather, not meant for Queen's diners on rainy Tuesdays. He scanned the room and locked eyes with her. "Latifah Santos?" She froze, dish rag dripping onto her sneakers. "Yes? My name is David Chen, legal counsel for Townsend Meridian." He approached the counter, keeping his voice low. "I need 5 minutes of your time." "I'm working." She glanced at Manny, who watched with raised eyebrows from the kitchen window. "Your employer will understand." Chen placed a business card on the counter. Heavy stock, raised lettering. "This is a matter of significant opportunity." Manny appeared beside her. "Everything okay, Latifah?" "Yes, Mr. Rodriguez." Chen extended his hand. "I'm here to discuss a potential employment opportunity for Ms. Santos. I'd be grateful for a brief conversation in private." Manny studied the card, then Chen's expensive suit, then Latifah's confused face. "Take 15 in the back office. I'll cover your tables." Before she could protest, Manny had taken her dish rag. Chen gestured toward the hallway by the restrooms. The office was barely a closet with a desk. Files stacked on every surface. A calendar from 3 years ago still showing January. She stood rather than sit in the broken chair. "What is this?" Chen placed a white envelope on the desk. Heavy cream paper, sealed with actual wax bearing a stylized TM logo. "Inside is an invitation to meet with my employer this afternoon. A car will wait outside at 2 p.m. Your employer?" "Royce Townsend." The name registered dimly. Something from business magazines at the dentist's office. Tech, or finance, or both. "I don't understand." "Mr. Townsend has a proposition that could benefit you significantly." Chen checked his watch. "I'm not authorized to discuss details. The envelope contains preliminary information and a non-disclosure agreement." Please sign it before entering the vehicle. She didn't touch the envelope. Is this a joke? I assure you, Miss Santos, Townsend Meridian does not joke about business matters. His expression softened slightly. This is legitimate and could resolve your current financial concerns. Her stomach dropped. How do you know about my... 2 p.m.? He nodded curtly. The car will wait exactly 15 minutes. He left her standing in the tiny office, staring at the envelope like it might bite. She hesitated, then broke the seal. Inside sat a single sheet of paper with an address in Manhattan's financial district, a non-disclosure agreement, and a check for $5,000 marked consultation fee, non-refundable. $5,000 for a meeting. At 1:58 p.m., Latifah stood outside Manny's diner in her cleanest. Jeans and a borrowed blouse from Elena, the morning hostess. Her hair fell in loose waves, the best she could manage in the employee bathroom with a borrowed hairbrush. A black Lincoln Navigator pulled to the curb precisely at 2 p.m. The driver stepped out, opening the rear door without a word. "This is crazy," she muttered, clutching her purse. But the eviction notice flashed in her mind. Her mother's medical bills. The non-refundable check already deposited at the bank across the street. She got in. Manhattan's buildings grew taller as they crossed the 59th Street Bridge. Latifah pressed her fingertips against the window, watching people on sidewalks who moved with purpose, with certainty. The car turned onto Wall Street, then pulled into an underground garage beneath a glass skyscraper. Ms. Santos. The driver opened her door. "Mr. Chen is waiting at the private elevator." Chen stood by brushed steel doors, checking his phone. He nodded at her approach. "The signed NDA?" She handed him the document. He scanned it quickly, then pressed his palm to a biometric reader. The elevator doors opened silently. 47th floor, he said, stepping aside. "Mr. Townsend is waiting." The elevator rose swiftly, numbers flashing on a digital display. Her stomach lurched at the speed. Or perhaps from nerves. The doors opened to reveal a reception area finished in walnut and steel, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's skyline. A woman with a crisp bob and glasses rose from behind a curved desk. "Miss Santos, please follow me." They walked through corridors where people in expensive suits glanced at her with curious eyes. The woman stopped at double doors, knocked once, and opened them without waiting for a response. "Sir, Miss Santos has arrived." The boardroom stretched long and imposing, dominated by a black glass table that could seat 30. Only one person waited inside. Royce Townsend sat at the far end in a wheelchair, not the utilitarian, kind from hospitals, but something custom, sleek, almost architectural. He wore a navy suit, white shirt, no tie, dark hair cut precisely, strong jawline, eyes that assessed her without warmth. "Miss Santos." His voice filled the room without effort. "Please sit." She moved to the nearest chair, aware of her borrowed blouse, her worn shoes, her second-hand handbag. "You're wondering why you're here. Not a question. A statement." "Yes. I'll be direct. I need a wife." He clasped his hands on the table. "Temporarily." She blinked. "Excuse me? My father died 3 months ago. His will contains a stipulation that I must be married by December 30th, first of this year, to maintain controlling interest in Townsend Meridian. If I fail to comply, 40% of voting shares transfer to the board of directors. And you're telling me this because I'm offering you a business arrangement." He pressed a button on his chair's arm. A document projected onto the wall screen. 1 year of legal marriage, public appearances as required, separate living quarters within my residence, no physical relationship expected or required, complete discretion mandated. She stared at him, waiting for the punchline. None came. "In exchange," he continued, "you receive financial compensation upon completion of the contract term." The number appeared on screen. $1 billion. She laughed. She couldn't help it. "This is absurd. This is business." He studied her face. "Your mother's care at Mount Sinai costs $57,600 annually. Your apartment eviction is scheduled for tomorrow. Your car needs repairs you cannot afford. You have $4,247.82 in your checking account after depositing my consultation fee. You need this arrangement more than I need your specific participation." The clinical recitation of her life shocked her into silence. "Why me?" she finally managed. "You were vetted." He didn't smile. No criminal history, no drug use, no social media scandals, no connections to competitors. You care for your mother despite impossible odds. Irresponsible? It sounded like a background check, not a compliment. Consider it overnight. He pressed another button. The projection vanished. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow for your answer. She found her voice. And if I say no, the consultation fee is yours regardless. We find another candidate. Life continues. He wheeled back from the table. The car will take you home. She stood on shaky legs. Mr. Townsend, people don't just sell themselves for money. For the first time, something like amusement crossed his face. Miss Santos, that's exactly what people do. I'm simply offering better terms than most. The Mount Sinai Memory Care Unit smelled of antiseptic and artificial flowers. Latifah signed in at the front desk, accepting the visitor badge with practiced ease. She knew the routine. 3 turns right, 1 left, room 417 at the end of the hall. Wednesday afternoons were usually good. Her mother recognized her on Wednesdays. Usually, "Hey, Mama." She entered the room quietly, setting her bag on the chair. Isabella Santos sat by the window, thin shoulders draped in a purple cardigan. At 59, she looked 20 years older, her body betraying her mind's accelerated decline. Early onset Alzheimer's had stolen her piece by piece for 5 years now. "Mama, it's Latifah." Isabella turned, eyes cloudy with confusion, then clearing. "My girl." Her Portuguese accent thickened with emotion. "You came." Every Wednesday, Latifah kissed her mother's papery cheek. "How are you feeling today?" "Good, good." Isabella patted the chair beside her. "Tell me about school. Your professor's giving too much homework." Latifah swallowed hard. Her mother was stuck in 2015 again, before the diagnosis, when Latifah still attended community college nursing classes. Before everything collapsed. "School's fine, Mama. Not too much work. You'll be a nurse soon, just like your dream." Isabella beamed with pride. "Your father would be so proud." "I know, Mama." They talked for an hour, or rather, Isabella talked, and Latifah answered as if they shared the same reality. She'd learned not to correct, not to update. It only caused distress, confusion, tears. Better to live in her mother's timeline, where Latifah was still becoming a nurse, and Antonio Santos was just working a late shift, not 8 years in his grave. Nurse Patel appeared at the door. "Medication time, Mrs. Santos." Isabella's face clouded. "No pills. I don't need pills. They help with the headaches, Mama, remember?" Latifah took her mother's hand. "Just like the doctor said." "What doctor?" "I didn't see any doctor." Panic edged into her voice. "Where's Antonio? He needs to take me home now." The familiar spiral began. "Mama, it's okay. This isn't my home. These people keep me here." "Antonio." Isabella tried to stand, legs wobbling dangerously. Nurse Patel moved quickly, signaling for assistance. Latifah held her mother's shoulders, murmuring reassurance as 2 aides appeared. Within minutes, they'd administered a sedative. Isabella's panic faded to confused drowsiness. "I'm sorry," Latifah whispered as they helped her mother to bed. "I'm so sorry." In the hallway, Nurse Patel touched her arm gently. "This isn't your fault. If I could be here more often. You're here more than most families." The nurse squeezed her hand. "She's getting the best care possible. The best care possible." The words echoed as Latifah walked to the administration office. The best care they could no longer afford. Ms. Reeves looked up from her computer. "Miss Santos, I'm glad you came in. We need to discuss payment options." "I know." Latifah sat in the hard plastic chair. "I deposited funds today. 5,000 for this month. The rest is coming." Miss Reeves raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "That's helpful, but we still have the outstanding balance of 12,000 plus next month's payment due in 2 weeks." "I understand." Latifah kept her voice steady. "I'll have it. May I ask how?" "Your payment plan." "I have a new job opportunity." The woman's face softened with sympathy. "Miss Santos, I understand your commitment to your mother, but if this facility is beyond your financial means, we can help coordinate transfer to a state-subsidized." "No." The word came out sharp. "She stays here. The reality is, my mother worked as a housekeeper for 30 years without missing a single day. She raised me alone after my father died. She paid taxes, she volunteered at church, she helped anyone who needed it." Latifah leaned forward. and now her mind is betraying her, and she's terrified every day. This place is the only one where she sometimes remembers who she is, so she stays. I'll get the money. Miss Reeves nodded slowly. 2 weeks. Outside, autumn wind cut through Latifah's thin jacket. She sat on a bench in the hospital garden, pulling Royce Townsend's business card from her purse. $1 billion, a number so large it lost meaning. She couldn't visualize it, couldn't comprehend it, but she could comprehend $12,000 of overdue medical bills. She could comprehend an eviction notice. She could comprehend her mother's face when she was confused and afraid. Her phone weighed heavy in her hand. So simple to dial. 10 digits between desperation and salvation. But at what cost? A year of her life. Her name in papers, online, everywhere. A contract marriage to a man who spoke about her like she was a commodity. A man whose coldness radiated from every precise word, every calculated gesture. A business arrangement. That's all he wanted. That's all she'd be. Was dignity worth more than her mother's care? Was pride worth more than security? She thought of her father's watch, ticking steady and sure. What would he say? What would he do for the woman he'd loved? If this video touches your heart, please like it. You never know who might understand making impossible choices for family. The sun slipped behind Mount Sinai's tallest tower, casting long shadows across the garden. A young doctor hurried past, white coat flapping. An elderly man pushed his wife's wheelchair along the path, their heads bent close in conversation. Latifah dialed the number. 3 rings. Then, Mr. Chen speaking. This is Latifah Santos. Her voice didn't waver. I'd like to speak with Mr. Townsend. Regarding his proposal? Yes. One moment. The line went silent. She closed her eyes, picturing her mother's face, not confused and afraid, but the way she used to be. Laughing in their tiny kitchen, singing Portuguese lullabies, teaching Latifah to make caldo verde soup on winter Sundays. Miss Santos, Royce Townsend's voice, cool and precise. Have you reached a decision? She took a deep breath, opened her eyes to the fading light. Yes, she said. I accept your terms. A pause. Then, the car will collect you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring whatever you wish to keep. The rest can be disposed of. Mr. Townsend. Yes? I need one condition of my own. His silence stretched, expectant. My mother's care is guaranteed, not just for a year, for life. Whatever she needs. Another pause. Agreed. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The line went dead. Latifah stared at the phone in her hand. What had she just done? Sold herself? Saved herself? Both? She stood, shoulders straight, and walked toward the subway. Tomorrow would bring a new life. A contract marriage. A billion-dollar prison with golden bars. But her mother would be safe. And maybe, somehow, that made it worth it. October 14th dawned cold and bright. Latifah stood in front of the small bathroom mirror in her apartment, applying mascara with a steady hand. The eviction notice had disappeared from her door. The landlord had called yesterday, confused about the 6-month advance payment that had appeared in his account. She smoothed her dress, the nicest one she owned, bought 2 years ago at Target for a job interview she didn't get. Navy blue, knee-length, slightly tight across the shoulders now. Her only pair of heels waited by the door, scuffed at the toes but recently polished. Her phone buzzed. Car arriving in 15 minutes. No good morning, no pleasantries, just efficiency. She touched her father's watch, now hanging from a chain around her neck. This isn't forever, Pi, she whispered. Just 1 year. The black navigator arrived exactly on time. The same driver, the same silence. They crossed into Manhattan as morning light glinted off glass towers. Not the financial district today. City Hall. Royce Townsend waited at the bottom of the steps, his wheelchair positioned precisely perpendicular to the concrete. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than everything Latifah had ever owned. His lawyer, Chen, stood beside him with a leather portfolio. Miss Santos. Royce nodded. No smile. Punctual. I appreciate that. Mr. Townsend. She stepped from the car, clutching her small purse. Are we proceeding? Unless you've changed your mind. His eyes searched her face. Have you? She thought of her mother, now secure in her care facility. Of the apartment she'd left behind, keys dropped in the landlord's mailbox. Of the contract she'd signed 3 days ago, each clause explained in detail by a lawyer Royce had hired for her. No. She straightened her shoulders. I haven't. Good. He gestured toward the building. Let's not waste time. Inside, they passed through security and followed signs to the marriage bureau. Other couples waited in plastic chairs, young students holding hands, older pairs, exchanging quiet smiles, a pregnant woman leaning against her partner's shoulder. Love, or something like it, filled the room. Except at the end of the row, where Latifah sat straight back beside Royce's wheelchair, not touching, not speaking. Santos Townsend? A clerk called. They entered a small room with beige walls and fluorescent lights. Judge Garcia, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and kind eyes, glanced between them. Her gaze lingered on Royce's wheelchair, then Latifah's simple dress, then the lawyers flanking them like guards. Will anyone else be joining us? She asked. No, Royce answered. Just the witnesses. Judge Garcia nodded slowly. I've been performing marriages for 27 years. I've seen all kinds. She looked directly at Latifah. Are you entering this marriage of your own free will without coercion? Chen shifted uncomfortably. Royce remained still. Latifah met the judge's eyes. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Townsend, same question. Yes. Judge Garcia sighed softly. Then we'll proceed with the civil ceremony. The words washed over Latifah like distant waves. Lawfully wedded husband, lawfully wedded wife, in sickness and in health. Promises meant for people who chose each other for reasons beyond legal contracts and billion-dollar paydays. The rings? Judge Garcia prompted. Chen produced a small velvet box. Inside sat 2 platinum bands, simple and expensive. Royce took the smaller ring between his fingers. His hand was steady as he slid it onto Latifah's finger. No warmth in the gesture, no lingering touch. She did the same for him, careful not to touch his skin more than necessary. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Judge Garcia closed her book. You may kiss the bride. Royce looked at Latifah, a question in his eyes. They hadn't discussed this part. She leaned down slightly. He pressed his lips to her cheek, formal and brief. Congratulations, Judge Garcia said, though her tone held reservation. Your marriage certificate will be processed within the hour. Outside, Latifah blinked in the sudden brightness. A flash exploded near her face. Then another. Mr. Townsend, over here. Royce, who's the bride? When did you start dating? What's your name, honey? Paparazzi swarmed the steps, cameras clicking like insects. Latifah froze, her hand instinctively rising to shield her face. Royce's security team materialized, creating a barrier between them and the photographers. His hand touched her wrist, pulling it gently down. Don't hide, he said quietly. It looks suspicious. Smile politely and keep walking. She dropped her hand, forced her lips into something resembling a smile, and followed his security team toward the waiting car. Mrs. Townsend, look this way. The name hit her like cold water. Mrs. Townsend. Not Santos anymore. At least not to the world. Inside the Navigator, doors finally closed against the shouting. Royce looked at his phone rather than her. The press release goes out in an hour. Standard narrative. We met through mutual friends, quiet courtship, private ceremony. Will they believe that? They'll print what sells. Our job is to appear convincing enough that the board has no grounds to challenge the validity of the marriage. He finally looked at her. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad, but a fraud claim could nullify everything. She twisted the new ring on her finger. What happens now? Now we go home. He said it matter-of-factly, like they'd done this 1,000 times. Your things arrived yesterday. Elena unpacked for you. Elena? The housekeeper. You'll meet the staff this afternoon. The Navigator pulled away from the curb, leaving the photographers scrambling for final shots. Through the tinted windows, Latifah watched City Hall recede, the place where her life had just fundamentally changed with a few words and signatures. Mrs. Townsend, for 1 year, for $1 billion, the car turned north toward the Upper East Side, toward a penthouse she'd never seen, toward a life she hadn't chosen so much as accepted. Latifah closed her eyes. 1 year. She could do anything for 1 year. The Townsend penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a limestone building on 5th Avenue, overlooking Central Park. The private elevator opened directly into a foyer with 20-foot ceilings and floors of polished marble veined with gold. A crystal chandelier hung like frozen rain above a circular table, holding a massive arrangement of white orchids. "Welcome home, Mrs. Townsend." A woman in her 50s stood with perfect posture, hands clasped at her waist. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled into a neat bun, her black dress simple but clearly expensive. "Elena, this is my wife, Latifa." Royce wheeled himself past the orchids. "Latifa, Elena manages the household." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Latifa said, extending her hand. Elena shook it, her grip firm and cool. "Likewise, ma'am. Your quarters are prepared. Would you like to freshen up before lunch?" Quarters, not bedroom. Not our bedroom. The distinction wasn't lost on Latifa. "That would be nice, thank you. I have calls to make," Royce said, already moving toward a hallway to the right. "We'll have dinner at 7. He disappeared around a corner, leaving Latifa with Elena. "This way, ma'am." Elena led her toward the opposite side of the penthouse. They passed through a great room where floor-to-ceiling windows framed Central Park in autumn glory. The furniture was modern, low leather sofas, glass tables, abstract art in muted colors. Nothing personal. No photographs, no evidence of a life lived. "The main kitchen is through there," Elena gestured to double doors. "Chef Marcus prepares all meals. If you have dietary preferences, please let him know." Chef Marcus. Of course. They climbed a floating staircase to the upper level. The hallway stretched long, lined with closed doors. "Mr. Townsend's suite is at the far end," Elena explained. "Your rooms are here." She opened double doors to reveal a suite larger than Latifa's entire queen's apartment. Cream walls, pale blue accents, a king bed draped in what looked like actual silk. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the park, a sitting area with velvet chairs, a writing desk, doors leading to what must be a bathroom and closet. "Your things have been unpacked." Elena crossed to the closet, opening the door. "Mr. Chen mentioned you might need additional items. I've taken the liberty of ordering some basics." Basics apparently meant rows of designer clothing still bearing tags. Dresses, blouses, trousers, shoes arranged by color and style. A jewelry box sat on a built-in dresser, already containing pieces Latifa was afraid to touch. "This is..." She struggled for words. "Necessary for your new position," Elena finished. "Mrs. Townsend has certain expectations to meet." Mrs. Townsend, not Latifa. A title, a role. "The bathroom is fully stocked. Dinner will be served in the small dining room at 7. Mr. Townsend prefers punctuality." Elena moved toward the door. "Will you need anything else?" "My old life back. My mother healthy. A marriage that isn't a business transaction." "No, thank you." Elena nodded and left, closing the doors with a soft click. Latifa sank onto the edge of the bed. The mattress yielded perfectly, not like her lumpy second-hand one in Queens. She ran her fingers over the duvet, feeling the smoothness of thread count she couldn't even guess at. In the bathroom, she found a shower with multiple heads, a soaking tub big enough for 2, marble counters, and products from brands she'd only seen in magazines. Her old toothbrush looked pathetic next to them, a reminder of the life she'd left behind. At 6:55, she made her way downstairs, wearing one of the new dresses. Navy blue, simple cut, probably costing more than a month's rent. She'd left her father's watch around her neck, tucked beneath the fabric. Some connections couldn't be replaced with designer labels. The small dining room held a table for 8, set for 2 at opposite ends. Crystal glittered under recessed lighting. Silver gleamed against white linen. A man in chef's whites arranged something on a plate in the attached butler's pantry. Royce entered precisely at 7, wheeling himself to the head of the table. He changed into a gray sweater that probably cost $1,000 but looked deceptively simple. "You found your way," he observed. "Your house isn't that complicated." She took the seat Elena had pulled out for her. "Our house," he corrected. For the next year, at least. Chef Marcus appeared, placing plates before them. Pan-seared scallops with pea puree and crispy pancetta, sir. And for the new Mrs. Townsend, he smiled, the first warm expression Latifa had seen all day. "Thank you, Marcus." Royce picked up his fork. "My wife prefers to be called Latifa. My wife." The words sounded rehearsed, like lines from a play he'd been forced to perform. They ate in silence. The food was exquisite, but Latifa barely tasted it. 8 feet of polished mahogany separated them. Might as well have been 8 miles. "The board meets tomorrow," Royce said finally. "They'll want to meet you soon. Probably Friday." Am I supposed to say something specific? Just the story we agreed upon. How we met, why we married quickly. He sipped water. Nothing complicated. And they'll believe it? They don't need to believe it. They just need no proof it's false. He set down his glass. My father's will specified marriage, not love. She nodded, pushing scallops around her plate. And your mother? Will I meet her? His face tightened almost imperceptibly. My mother lives in Connecticut. She visits rarely. The rest of dinner passed in strained conversation about penthouse rules. Which areas were communal? Which staff reported to whom? The security protocols. By dessert, a panna cotta she couldn't finish. Latifah felt like she'd accepted a job rather than a marriage. Which, of course, she had. That night, unable to sleep in the too-soft bed, she wandered the darkened penthouse. The great room looked different at night, shadows softening its hard edges, city lights twinkling beyond the windows. She curled into a corner of the massive sofa, watching yellow cabs move like toys along Fifth Avenue far below. A noise drew her attention. Down the hallway Royce had disappeared into earlier, light spilled from a partially open door. Curious, she moved closer. The room was a fully equipped rehabilitation gym. Parallel bars, weights, exercise machines modified for someone with limited mobility. And in the center, Royce, gripping the parallel bars, face contorted with effort. He wore athletic shorts and a gray t-shirt soaked with sweat. His legs, thin but muscled, trembled as he attempted to bear weight on them. A man in scrubs, a physical therapist presumably, stood nearby, offering quiet encouragement. 6 seconds, the therapist said. New record. Royce's arms shook with strain. Sweat dripped from his hairline. Again. It's after midnight. We should. Again. Latifah must have made a sound because both men turned toward the door. Royce's face darkened when he saw her. This is private, he said, voice tight with exertion and something else. Pride, maybe. Or shame. I'm sorry. She stepped back. I couldn't sleep and heard. You can go. He wasn't looking at her anymore. Focus returned to the bars, to his legs that refused to cooperate fully. This isn't part of our arrangement. The dismissal stung more than it should have. She retreated, closing the door gently behind her. Back in her suite, she lay awake thinking about the man she'd married. The cool executive in the boardroom, the distant husband at dinner, the determined figure on those parallel bars, fighting gravity and nerve damage with equal intensity. She'd signed a contract with a stranger. Now she lived in his house, ate his food, wore clothes he'd paid for. But she knew nothing about who he really was. Except that at midnight, when no one was supposed to see, Royce Townsend refused to surrender to his broken body. That, at least, she understood. 3 days after the wedding, the first headline appeared. Townsend heir marries waitress, love or legal strategy. Latifah saw it on her tablet over breakfast, eggs Benedict that she ate alone while Royce took calls in his office. The article featured their city hall photos, zoomed in on her scuffed shoes and simple dress. It quoted sources close to the family questioning the sudden nature of the marriage, speculating about Royce's father's will. By noon, TMZ had run with a more direct approach. Gold digger of the year, Queen's waitress lands billionaire wheelchair CEO. The comments beneath were worse. People speculating about her past, her motivations, her sexuality. Complete strangers making judgments about a situation they couldn't possibly understand. She closed the tablet, pushing away her half-eaten breakfast. Elena appeared, coffee pot in hand. More coffee, ma'am? No, thank you. Latifah hesitated. Have you seen the news? Elena's expression remained neutral. Staff doesn't comment on family matters. Of course, I'm sorry. However, Elena set down the pot. I've worked for Mr. Townsend for 7 years. This isn't the first time the press has invented stories. It won't be the last. The implied support, however professional, felt like a lifeline. By afternoon, her email address, one she rarely used, had somehow leaked. Hundreds of messages poured in. Most were hateful. Some contained threats. A few included photos so disturbing, she deleted them immediately. She was sitting in her suite, trying not to cry, when Royce knocked at her door. Come in, she called, quickly wiping her eyes. He wheeled himself into the room, tablet on his lap. You've seen the coverage. It wasn't a question. She nodded anyway. This was expected, he said. My father was a public figure. I'm a public figure. The marriage was always going to draw attention. I didn't expect death threats. His eyebrows rose slightly. You've received threats? She gestured to her laptop. My email, my old social media accounts. Someone even found my mother's care facility and called them. Something shifted in his expression. Concern, perhaps. Or anger. Show me. She turned the laptop toward him. He scanned several messages, jaw tightening with each one. This ends now. He pulled out his phone, dialed quickly. James, security breach. Mrs. Townsend's personal information has been compromised. Full lockdown, new accounts, everything. And double security at Isabella Santos's facility immediately. He listened briefly. Yes. Now. He ended the call, looking at Latifa. This is unacceptable. I should have anticipated. It's not your fault. You're my wife. The words came out harder than before. Less rehearsed. Your safety is my responsibility, contract or not. Within hours, a security team had swept her devices, created new secured accounts, and installed additional measures at her mother's facility. A short statement appeared on Townsend Meridian's official channels. Royce and Latifa Townsend appreciate the public's interest, but request privacy as they begin their life together. Any harassment of Mrs. Townsend or her family will be met with full legal response. It didn't stop the speculation, but the direct threats decreased. That evening, Royce knocked on her door again. We need to discuss the Lincoln Center Gala. The what? Annual fundraiser. Black tie, board members, investors, major donors. He looked uncomfortable. We need to make our first public appearance as a couple. Latifa's stomach dropped. When? Tomorrow night. Tomorrow? She ran a hand through her hair. I don't know how to. I've never been to anything like that. Elena has arranged everything. Dress, styling, briefing on key attendees. He hesitated. I know this is difficult, but it's necessary. She wanted to protest, to hide in this luxurious suite and pretend the outside world didn't exist. But that wasn't the deal. I'll be ready, she said. The next evening, Latifa barely recognized herself in the mirror. Elena had arranged for a stylist who spent hours on her hair and makeup. The gown, deep green silk that draped perfectly, had been delivered that morning, already altered to her measurements. Emeralds glittered at her throat and ears. From the Townsend collection, Elena had explained. Beneath the necklace, hidden from view, her father's watch still hung from its chain. Royce waited in the foyer, wearing a tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders. His chair, too, looked different, sleeker, more formal somehow. His eyes widened slightly when she descended the stairs. You look. He paused. Appropriate. Not beautiful. Not stunning. Appropriate. The word shouldn't have hurt. Thank you, she said anyway. You look very appropriate yourself. The Lincoln Center glowed against the night sky, red carpet leading to its entrance. Cameras flashed as they arrived. Royce had briefed her in the car. Smile politely, answer no questions, keep moving. She placed her hand on his shoulder as they had practiced, allowing him to guide the chair himself. The gesture looked intimate while preserving his independence. Inside, the grand foyer buzzed with Manhattan's elite. Women draped in jewels, men in custom tuxedos, champagne flowing freely, conversations about vacation homes and private jets. Royce, a woman in her 60s, approached, diamonds sparkling at her wrists. We've missed you at the last 2 board meetings. Family matters, Margaret. Royce's tone cooled. My father's funeral took precedence. Of course, of course. Margaret's gaze slid to Latifa, assessing and dismissing in one glance. And this must be your bride. The pause spoke volumes. My wife, Latifa. Royce placed his hand over hers on his shoulder. Latifa, Margaret Chen. Board member and VP of Asian Markets. Lovely to meet you. Latifa extended her hand. Margaret shook it briefly. Quite a whirlwind romance, I understand. City Hall, was it? So efficient. We preferred intimate, Latifa replied. Just the 2 of us. Margaret sipped champagne. Well, marriage certainly suits Royce's current situation. His father's will was quite specific about the timeline. The implication hung in the air. This marriage was nothing but legal convenience. She wasn't wrong. But something in Latifa rebelled against having this woman voice what was supposed to be private. Actually, she said, voice steady, the timeline was my suggestion. Why wait when you know what you want? Margaret's eyebrows rose. Indeed. And what was it you wanted exactly? Before Latifah could respond, Royce cut in. My wife doesn't owe explanations, Margaret. Now if you'll excuse us, I see James waiting with the board chairman. He wheeled away, Latifah's hand still on his shoulder. Once out of earshot, he spoke quietly. You handled that well. She thinks I married you for money. Everyone here thinks that. His voice remained neutral. It doesn't matter what they think. But it did matter. Every look, every whispered comment, every assessment of her dress, borrowed and jewelry. Borrowed, and right to be here borrowed. It all chipped away at something inside her. The evening crawled by. Latifah smiled until her face hurt. She remembered names, affiliations, spouses. She avoided questions about her background, her family, how she and Royce had met. She drank one glass of champagne slowly, afraid to lose control even slightly. As the orchestra began playing after dinner, couples moved to the dance floor. Royce remained at their table, watching with an expression Latifah couldn't read. Would you excuse me? She asked. I need some air. She found a quiet balcony overlooking Lincoln Center Plaza. The October night had turned chilly, but she welcomed the cold against her flushed skin. Running away, she turned to find Royce wheeling himself onto the balcony. Just breathing, she answered. You're doing well. He positioned himself beside her at the railing. Better than I expected. Thanks for the vote of confidence. He almost smiled, the closest she'd seen to genuine amusement. It's not easy. This world, these people. I grew up with them and still find them exhausting. For a moment, they stood in companionable silence, watching headlights move along Columbus Avenue. Margaret Chen, he said finally. Her son was my roommate at Harvard. She's been trying to force me out since my accident, claims my condition makes me unfit to lead. That's discrimination. That's business. He shrugged. She's not entirely wrong. The first year after the accident, I could barely function. Pain, medication, depression. The company suffered. It was the most personal information he'd shared since they met. Latifah turned to study his profile. Strong jawline, straight nose, eyes that revealed more than he probably intended. But you're better now? Different. He looked up at her. Adapted. Inside, the orchestra began playing a waltz. The music drifted through the open doors, soft and melancholy. An impulse struck her. Dance with me. He blinked. What? Dance with me. She stepped closer to his chair. Here, just us. I can't. You can. She placed one hand on his shoulder, held the other out. Your arms work perfectly well. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then he took her offered hand, placed his other hand at her waist. She moved closer, careful not to place weight on his legs. They began to sway gently, his chair moving in small arcs under his control, her body following his lead. Not a proper dance. Something new they created together. Through the doors, other couples spun across polished floors, executing perfect steps. But here in the darkness, a woman in borrowed emeralds and a man who refused to surrender found their own rhythm. They're all watching, he murmured, nodding toward the glass doors where several guests had paused to stare. Let them watch. Latifah met his eyes. Let them see what they think they understand. For the first time since their contract began, something real passed between them. Not affection exactly, but recognition. Two people against a world determined to judge them. What would you have said to those people? Comment below if you've ever been judged unfairly. They finished their dance in silence, neither rushing to end the moment. When the music changed, they remained on the balcony, hands still joined, neither acknowledging it. Tomorrow would bring more headlines, more speculation, more judgment. But tonight, they'd found a moment of truth in their elaborate fiction. It wasn't love. It wasn't even friendship yet. But it was something. A beginning. November brought early snow to Manhattan. Thick flakes swirled outside the penthouse windows, transforming Fifth Avenue into a hushed wonderland. Inside, Latifah sat curled in the library's window seat, watching the white accumulation while nursing a cup of tea. 3 weeks had passed since the Lincoln Center Gala. 3 weeks of cautious politeness, of learning to navigate the penthouse and its staff, of settling into routines that kept her and Royce in separate orbits. Except for meals. They'd established dinner together each evening, a suggestion from Chen for appearance's sake. At first, conversation had been minimal. Weather, scheduling, necessary exchanges about household matters. Until tonight. How is your mother? The question caught Latifah mid-sip. Royce sat across the dining table, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. She's... Latifah set down her cup. Some days are better than others. Today was good, according to her nurse. She remembered my name. Royce nodded, considering this. Early onset Alzheimer's, correct? Your file mentioned diagnosis at 54. My file. She couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Yes, very thorough. I didn't mean... He stopped, recalibrated. I'm trying to understand. About your mother. Not from reports. The effort seemed genuine. She softened slightly. She was a housekeeper. Worked for the same family in Manhattan for 30 years. Never missed a day, even when she was sick. Started forgetting small things 5 years ago. Keys, appointments, then bigger things. Like you, like everything. Latifah pushed rice around her plate. Some days she thinks I'm still in college. Some days she thinks I'm a stranger. Some days she's perfectly lucid, and those are almost harder because she knows what's happening to her. You visit every Wednesday. Yes. Would you... He hesitated. Would you like a driver instead of taking the subway? James could... I prefer the subway. She didn't know why she was being stubborn. Maybe because the subway was hers, a piece of her old life. But thank you. He accepted this with a nod. If you change your mind... Later that evening, she found herself restless. Sleep wouldn't come, despite the luxurious bedding. She wandered to the library, drawn to its shelves of leather-bound volumes. Most seemed unread, decorative rather than loved. She ran her fingers along spines, searching for something familiar. Nothing. All business tomes, historical biographies, first editions too valuable to actually open. She retreated to her suite, retrieving the slim volume of Portuguese poetry she'd brought from Queens, one of her father's few possessions that had survived. When she returned to the library, Royce was there, reading in the soft lamplight. Sorry, she said, turning to leave. I didn't realize... Stay. He looked up from his tablet. Please. She hesitated, then moved to the opposite chair. The book felt warm in her hands, a connection to something real. Your father's? Royce asked, noticing her grip on the volume. Yes, Antonio Almeida, not my father's work. He was a taxi driver, not a poet, but his favorite poems. In Portuguese? She nodded. And English translations. Would you? His voice grew quieter. Would you read one? I don't speak Portuguese, but I'd like to hear it. The request surprised her. More surprising was her willingness to comply. She opened to a dog-eared page, cleared her throat, and began reading in the language of her childhood. The words flowed like music, a poem about the sea, about distance, about finding home in unexpected harbors. When she finished, she translated the English version, watching Royce's face as he listened. His eyes closed briefly, absorbing the cadence. That's beautiful, he said when she finished. Thank you. Something shifted between them that night, a small crack in the wall. The next evening, she brought the book again. He asked for another poem. She read two. On the third night, she found him waiting with questions about her father, about Portugal, about the meanings hidden in the translations. She answered, surprised by his genuine interest. Their conversations expanded. In the library after dinner, during breakfast before his meetings, sometimes late at night when neither could sleep. He taught her about market fluctuations, about board politics, about the technology that had built Townsend Meridian. She told him about growing up in Queens, about community college nursing classes, abandoned when her mother fell ill, about dreams deferred, but not forgotten. You still want to be a nurse? He asked one evening, 3 weeks into their new routine. I wanted to help people. She tucked her feet beneath her on the sofa. Nursing seemed practical, stable, but not your passion. She considered this. I don't know if I ever had the luxury of following passion. His eyes softened. And if you did, if money wasn't an issue? Maybe teaching? The admission felt vulnerable. I used to tutor ESL students, adults learning English after immigration, watching someone understand something for the first time, that light in their eyes. It felt important. He nodded slowly. It is important. The following day, a stack of books appeared in her suite, texts on education theory, immigrant experiences, modern teaching methods. No note, none needed. In turn, she began noticing things about him. The way frustration tightened his shoulders after difficult board calls. The careful way he measured his medication, the determination during his therapy sessions which she no longer avoided watching. One evening, she found him in the gym, face tight with pain after a grueling session. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the cabinet where his massage therapist kept supplies. He hesitated, then nodded. She warmed oil between her palms and worked it into his shoulders, feeling knotted muscles beneath her fingers. He remained silent, but the tension gradually eased under her touch. "My mother had back problems," she explained. "The nurses taught me how to help." "You have good hands," he said quietly. "You have good determination." She worked a particularly tight spot. Most people would have given up. "Did you? When things got hard with your mother?" "No." Her hands paused. "That's not an option when you love someone." He was silent for a long moment. "I don't know if I've ever loved anyone like that." The admission hung between them, honest, unguarded, not calculated, not part of their arrangement, just truth. "It's exhausting," she said finally, "and worth every second." He reached up, covered her hand with his where it rested on his shoulder. The touch was brief but deliberate. "Thank you," he said. She knew he meant for more than the massage. Days accumulated into patterns. Coffee together in the mornings. Updates on her mother's condition. She began accompanying him to therapy sessions, offering encouragement rather than pity. He began asking her opinion on company decisions, valuing her perspective from outside the corporate bubble. The penthouse changed too. Her books mingled with his. A photograph of her mother appeared on a side table. The staff stopped referring to her quarters and simply called it her room. Something was building between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding, respect, maybe even friendship. The contract remained. The years still ticked by, but the walls had begun to crumble, brick by careful brick. The Haverford Foundation Gala fell on the first Saturday in December. Another black tie event, another opportunity for public scrutiny, another test of their performance as a couple. Except this time felt different. Latifah no longer needed Elena's guidance on which fork to use or which board member to avoid. The emeralds at her throat, still borrowed from the Townsend collection, felt less like a costume. When photographers called her name outside the Metropolitan Museum, she didn't flinch. "You're getting good at this," Royce murmured as they navigated the receiving line. "Survival skills," she replied, but her smile was genuine. They developed a rhythm at these events. She stayed close to his chair, not hovering but present. He introduced her with quiet pride, not as an accessory, but as his wife. When malicious whispers reached them, they exchanged glances that said more than words could. Tonight, something electric hummed between them. Perhaps it was the champagne. She'd allowed herself 2 glasses instead of her usual one. Perhaps it was the music, a jazz quartet that played songs her father had loved. Perhaps it was simply time, eroding pretense. Near midnight, Royce found her by the dessert table. "Ready to leave?" he asked. "Absolutely." In the Navigator heading home, snow began falling again. The city glowed golden beyond the windows. Latifah leaned her head against the cool glass, suddenly aware of Royce watching her. "What?" she asked. "You're beautiful," he said simply. The words hung between them, not a calculated compliment, not part of their public performance, just truth, offered in the privacy of their car. "Thank you," she said, warmth spreading through her chest. The penthouse was quiet when they arrived, staff dismissed for the night. In the elevator, Latifah slipped off her heels with a sigh of relief. Royce smiled at the gesture, so domestic, so unlike their early formal days. "Nightcap?" he suggested as they entered the foyer. "I could use a whiskey after that conversation with Senator Williams. I'd like that." He wheeled toward his suite. "The good stuff is in my room. Meet you there?" 10 minutes later she knocked on his door, having changed from her gown into silk pajamas and a robe. He answered wearing a t-shirt and lounge pants, his bow tie hanging undone around his neck. His suite mirrored hers in size but differed in character. Darker colors, more technology, adaptations for his mobility, subtle but functional. A glass of amber liquid waited on a side table near a leather armchair. "Here." He handed it to her, pouring a second for himself. The whiskey burned pleasantly. Expensive, like everything in this house, but she developed a taste for it during their late-night conversations. "You still have this on?" She gestured to his bow tie. "Uncomfortable?" "I can't get the knot undone." He grimaced. "Usually James helps, but he's gone for the night." I can try. She set down her glass. He tilted his chin up as she stepped closer. The black silk was smooth beneath her fingers as she worked the knot loose. His cologne, cedar, and something warmer, filled her senses. She could feel his breath, steady and controlled. There, the tie came free. She didn't step back. His eyes held hers, searching for something. Permission, perhaps, or certainty. Latifa, just her name, but filled with question. Yes, her voice barely a whisper. This isn't part of our contract. I know. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to retreat. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw. She leaned into the touch, eyes closing briefly. Are you sure? He asked. In answer, she closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss began gentle, a question, an exploration. His hand slid into her hair, cradling the back of her head. She braced herself on the arms of his chair, careful not to put pressure on his legs. When they broke apart, both breathing faster, he studied her face. I didn't expect this, he admitted. Neither did I. She smiled slightly. Nothing about us has followed expectations. He pulled her down for another kiss, deeper this time. Her robe slipped open. His hands found her waist, warm through the thin silk. I want you, he said against her mouth, but my body doesn't always cooperate the way I'd like. She straightened, held his gaze. Show me how to touch you. I'll show you what I like. We'll figure it out together. The vulnerability in his eyes nearly undid her. How long since someone had seen him as a man, not a condition? How long since he'd allowed someone to try? She reached for the hem of his shirt. May I? He nodded. She lifted the fabric, exposing his torso, lean muscle, a surgical scar along his spine. She bent to kiss the scar, felt him shudder beneath her lips. Bed would be easier, he murmured. Show me. He led her through his routine, the transfer from chair to mattress, practiced and efficient. No embarrassment, no apology, just trust that she wouldn't pity or judge. She didn't. She followed him onto the bed, her body settling beside his, learning the landscape of what brought pleasure and what caused discomfort. He did the same, hands gentle but confident as they explored. Tell me what you need, she whispered. Just you, he answered. Just this. Their bodies found rhythm, adapted, attentive, attuned to each other's responses. When sensation overwhelmed him, she held him close. When he touched her in ways that made her gasp, she didn't hide her pleasure. It wasn't perfect. There were adjustments, pauses, moments of uncertainty. But there was also laughter, quiet and intimate, and murmured encouragement and the gradual dissolution of boundaries. Afterward, she curled against his side, her head on his shoulder. His fingers traced patterns on her skin. Are you okay? He asked. More than okay. She propped herself up to see his face. I thought this part of my life was over. His voice roughened. After the accident, I just assumed. And now? A smile touched his lips. Now I'm reconsidering a lot of assumptions. She settled back against him, listening to his heartbeat. This changes things. Yes. His arm tightened around her. If you want to leave, amend the contract. No. She raised her head again. That's not what I meant. I meant this changes things between us, makes them real. Relief crossed his face. Real, he repeated. I like that. She slept in his bed that night, wrapped in expensive sheets and the warmth of his body. No contract covered this development. No clause explained the way her heart quickened when he pulled her closer in his sleep. Morning light filtered through automated blinds, waking her gently. For a moment, confusion. This wasn't her room. Then memory returned, along with the weight of an arm around her waist. She turned carefully to find Royce watching her, eyes still heavy with sleep. Hi, she said. Hi. His voice was rough, beautiful. Still here, she confirmed. Any regrets? She considered the question seriously. This complicated everything. The contract, the money, the eventual separation their agreement demanded. No, she said finally. No regrets. His smile warmed every corner of her heart. Good. Me neither. He pulled her close, lips finding hers in the golden morning light. What had begun as business had become something neither had anticipated. Something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. Something real. The doorbell rang at precisely 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, 3 weeks after the night that had changed everything. Latifa looked up from her laptop. She'd been researching teaching certification, programs, a possibility that felt less impossible each day. Elena appeared in the library doorway. "Mrs. Townsend, you have a visitor." "I'm not expecting anyone." Latifa saved her document and stood. "Who is it?" "Mrs. Vivian Townsend." A chill ran down Latifa's spine. Royce's mother. The woman he rarely mentioned except in terse sentences that revealed old wounds. "Royce isn't home," Latifa said. "He's at the board meeting until 2. Mrs. Townsend specifically asked to see you." Elena's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held warning. "She's waiting in the main living room." Latifa smoothed her sweater, cashmere, one of the basics Elena had ordered months ago, and followed the housekeeper through the penthouse. Vivian Townsend stood by the windows, a slender figure in a tailored black suit that emphasized her perfect posture. Silver hair cut in a sleek bob, pearls at her throat, diamond studs in her ears, understated wealth in human form. At 65, she looked a decade younger, her face smooth from expert cosmetic work. "Mrs. Santos." She didn't offer her hand. Or should I say, Mrs. Townsend? "Either is fine." Latifa kept her voice steady. "Would you like some tea? Coffee? This isn't a social call." Vivian gestured to the sofa. "Please, sit." Latifa took a seat, maintaining eye contact. Elena hovered near the doorway. "That will be all, Elena," Vivian said. The housekeeper glanced at Latifa, who nodded slightly. Alone with her mother-in-law, Latifa waited. "You've been married to my son for nearly 2 months." Vivian remained standing, establishing dominance. "In that time, you've appeared at 7 public events, been featured in numerous publications, and somehow managed to convince several board members of your authenticity. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything." "Please." Vivian's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We both know exactly what this marriage is, a transaction to satisfy Harold's ridiculous requirements." Latifa said nothing. Technically, Vivian wasn't wrong. That's how this had begun. "What you may not know," Vivian continued, "is that I opposed this clause in my ex-husband's will, not because I didn't want Royce to find happiness, because I knew it would lead to exactly this situation." "What situation would that be?" "A desperate woman taking advantage of my son's vulnerability." Vivian moved to the sofa opposite, finally sitting. "His condition makes him susceptible to manipulation, especially emotional manipulation." Heat flared in Latifa's chest. "With all due respect, Mrs. Townsend, you don't know anything about my relationship with Royce. I know he's never brought a woman home before, not since the accident." Vivian's gaze was cutting. "I know his assets are worth billions. I know your mother's care facility costs are now covered by the Townsend Family Trust. Rather convenient timing. If you're implying I married your son for money, you're right." Latifa met the older woman's stare. "That's exactly how this began. We both acknowledged that." Vivian blinked, clearly not expecting such blunt honesty. "But if you think that's all this is now," Latifa continued, "you're underestimating both your son and me." Pretty words. Vivian reached into her handbag, withdrawing a folder. "Let's see if actions match." She slid the folder across the coffee table. Latifa opened it to find a legal document, dense with legal terminology. "A post-nuptial agreement," Vivian explained, stating that, in the event of divorce, you forfeit all financial claims against the Townsend estate, family trusts, and Townsend Meridian. You walk away with nothing beyond what you brought into the marriage. Latifa scanned the document, anger building with each paragraph. "Why are you doing this?" "Protection." Vivian's voice hardened. "My son may be blinded by whatever act you're performing, but I see clearly. Prove me wrong. Prove this isn't about money. Sign it. Does Royce know about this?" "This is between us." Vivian smiled thinly. "A test, if you will." Latifa stood, moving to the desk in the corner. She found a pen, returned to the coffee table, and signed her name on every flagged line without hesitation. The scratching of pen on paper filled the silence. When she finished, she closed the folder and handed it back. Satisfied? Surprise flickered across Vivian's perfect features. "You didn't even read it fully." "I don't need to." Latifa's voice remained calm despite her racing heart. "I'm not here for Royce's money. I'm here for him. We'll see how long that lasts." Vivian tucked the folder into her bag. "When the contract year ends and you realize he won't be manipulated into extending your arrangement." The front door opened before Latifa could respond. Royce's voice carried from the foyer. Elena, is Latifa home? Followed by the sound of his wheelchair approaching. He appeared in the doorway, stopping abruptly when he saw his mother. Mother, this is unexpected. Just a friendly visit with your new wife. Vivian stood, smoothing her skirt. Getting to know each other. Royce's eyes narrowed, moving from his mother to Latifa's tense posture. What's going on? Nothing. That Vivian began. Your mother brought a postnuptial agreement. Latifa kept her gaze on Royce. I signed it. His expression darkened. You did what? Vivian sighed. Royce, it's simply protection. Your father would have... Get out. His voice dropped dangerously low. Excuse me? Get out of my home. He wheeled further into the room. You come here when I'm not present. You ambush my wife with legal documents. You presume to know what my father would want. Get out. Royce. Now, Mother. Vivian's mouth tightened into a thin line. She collected her handbag with precise movements. This infatuation will pass. When it does, you'll thank me. She walked to the door, heels clicking on marble. Before exiting, she turned back. The agreement is legally binding, Miss Santos. Remember that. After she left, silence filled the room. Royce's hands gripped his wheelchair arms, knuckles white with tension. Why would you sign that? He finally asked. Without me present? Without your own lawyer? Because it doesn't matter. Latifa moved to kneel beside his chair. Money was never why I stayed. But it's why you came, he reminded her. That was our deal. Things change. She covered his hand with hers. I've changed. So have you. His anger seemed to deflate. I'll have Chen invalidate it. There was coercion, no representation. No. She squeezed his fingers. Let it stand. Why? Because now no one can question this. She gestured between them. Not your mother, not the board, not even ourselves. Whatever happens between us now has nothing to do with the contract or the money. He studied her face, searching for deception or regret. Finding none, he pulled her into an embrace, burying his face in her hair. I'm sorry, he murmured. She had no right. She's protecting her son. Latifa drew back to meet his eyes. I understand that part. You're my wife. His voice strengthened. I protect you now, both of us, together. The word wife no longer sounded like a business term on his lips. It carried weight, meaning commitment beyond legal definition. Subscribe if you want to see how real love handles tests. Later that evening, as they prepared for bed, in his room, where she'd slept every night since December, Royce broke their comfortable silence. Did you mean it, about the money not mattering? She paused in brushing her hair, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Yes. Even $1 billion? She set down the brush, turned to face him. Even that? What about your mother's care, your dreams of teaching? We'll figure it out. She moved to sit beside him on the bed. Money solved some problems, not all of them. He took her hand, ran his thumb across her knuckles. I want to give you everything. I just want you. She leaned forward, pressed her forehead to his. The rest is just details. That night, as snow fell outside their windows, they held each other with the quiet certainty of people who had found something unexpected, a love that had grown not from fantasy or obligation, but from choice, daily, deliberate choice. The contract still existed. The years still advanced. But something stronger had taken root between them. Something no postnuptial agreement could measure or contain. February brought biting winds and deeper snow to Manhattan. 3 months since that first night in Royce's bed. 3 months of genuine connection, of shared meals and shared dreams, of walls continuing to crumble between them. But at 3 a.m., doubt crept in like the winter cold. Latifa lay awake beside Royce, watching his chest rise and fall in sleep. The penthouse heating hummed softly, keeping the bedroom at a perfect 72 degrees, while outside, temperatures plunged below freezing. Perfect warmth. Perfect comfort. Perfect illusion? She slipped from the bed, careful not to wake him. Pulling on his discarded dress shirt, she padded to the window. Fifth Avenue stretched below, streetlights glowing in the darkness, occasional taxis moving like yellow beetles through the snow. From this height, her old life in Queens seemed like a distant memory. The double shifts, the constant worry, the stack of unpaid bills. Now she wore cashmere and silk, ate food prepared by a private chef, slept on sheets that cost more than a month's rent at her old apartment, Yet something gnawed at her edges. A voice that whispered, "This isn't yours. You don't belong here. This will end." The calendar on Royce's desk showed February 14th, Valentine's Day, but also 4 months exactly since their wedding. 8 months remaining in their contract. 8 months until ... what? The agreement dissolved. The $1 billion transferred. Their lives separated, except nothing felt contractual anymore. Not the way he kissed her good morning. Not the way she helped with his therapy exercises. Not the way they'd begun discussing the future, tentatively, carefully, but still. A future. She moved to his closet, ran her fingers over custom suits that hung in perfect rows. In the adjoining bathroom, she studied her reflection in the mirror, her face softened by expensive creams, her hair styled by professionals, who came to the penthouse twice weekly, her body draped in his shirt that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe from before. "Who are you now?" she whispered to her reflection. The question followed her through the dark penthouse as she wandered to the kitchen for tea. Voices drifted from the staff quarters down the service hallway, night security changing shifts. "Don't know how long it'll last," a male voice said. "Security team, maybe Thomas? Mr. Chen says the contract has specific terms." "She seems different than we expected," another voice replied. "Miguel, the weekend doorman. Miss Elena says they're actually... doesn't matter. Rich guy, poor girl. We all know how that story ends." Latifah froze, teacup halfway to the cabinet. "Not always," Miguel protested. "They seem happy. For now. Until the novelty wears off, or until her settlement clears." Hot shame washed over her. She retreated silently, abandoning the tea, moving back through the darkened penthouse like a ghost. Their words echoed what she'd been thinking in her darkest moments. Rich guy, poor girl. We all know how that story ends. The next morning she visited her mother. Mount Sinai's memory care unit was quiet for a Wednesday afternoon. Isabella sat by the window, thin fingers working at invisible knitting needles, a remnant memory of a hobby long forgotten. "Mama," Latifah said gently, touching her shoulder. "It's Latifah." Isabella looked up, eyes cloudy with confusion. "The nurse said Antonio is coming today." Latifah's heart sank. "Bad day." "No, Mama, it's me, your daughter." "I don't have a daughter." Isabella's brow furrowed. "Who are you? Why are you in my room?" Dr. Patterson found Latifah crying in the family consultation room 20 minutes later. "This progression is consistent with her condition," he explained gently. "The good days will become less frequent. How long until she doesn't know me at all? It's impossible to say exactly. But given the acceleration we're seeing..." He hesitated. "Perhaps 6 months, maybe less. 6 months. Within the time frame of her contract with Royce. By the time their agreement ended, her mother might not recognize her at all. We're adjusting her medication," Dr. Patterson continued. "But I want to prepare you for difficult decisions ahead. As cognitive function decreases, physical complications often follow." The subway ride back to Manhattan passed in a blur. She stared at her reflection in the train window. Designer coat, Italian leather boots, diamond studs in her ears. Outside, Queens rushed by. Her old neighborhood, where people worked, double shifts and counted pennies and made impossible choices daily. Who was she now? The waitress from Queens? Mrs. Royce Townsend? Something in between? At the penthouse, Elena greeted her with a concerned look. Mrs. Townsend called twice. The board meeting finished early. "Thank you, Elena." Latifah handed over her coat. "Is he in his office?" "Yes, ma'am." "Ma'am," not Latifah. Not the casual warmth they developed in recent weeks. The formality hit like a slap, reminding her of boundaries still firmly in place despite everything that had changed. She found Royce on a video call, his expression serious as he discussed quarterly projections. He smiled when he saw her, held up one finger indicating he'd be done soon. She nodded and retreated to the library, their shared space. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. She opened it, then wished she hadn't. Townsend marriage, countdown to payday? The article speculated about their relationship, citing inside sources who claimed the marriage had a fixed end date. It mentioned the prenuptial agreement, the postnuptial Vivian had forced, her mother's care suddenly covered by Townsend money. Comments below were vicious, gold digger playing the long game. He's desperate, she's greedy. Perfect match. Betting she's gone the minute money clears. She closed the browser, hands shaking. The worst part wasn't the public judgment. It was how closely their words mirrored her own 3 a.m. doubts. That night, she lay beside Royce again, listening to his breathing. He'd noticed her distraction at dinner, asked if everything was all right. She'd lied, said she was tired. He'd accepted it, kissed her forehead, held her close. But the space between them felt vast suddenly, filled with everything unsaid. My mother is getting worse. Your staff thinks I'm using you. The world is counting down to our separation. I'm afraid I'll lose you, when the contract ends. I'm afraid you're only choosing me because it's convenient. I'm afraid this isn't real. She waited until his breathing deepened into sleep. Then she slipped from the bed again, this time with purpose rather than restlessness. This couldn't continue. The uncertainty, the doubt, the fear that she was living on borrowed time in a borrowed life. Better to end it cleanly. Better to walk away before she lost herself completely in this beautiful illusion. Better to leave while she still remembered who she was before Royce Townsend. 4:30 in the morning. The penthouse stood silent, wrapped in pre-dawn darkness. In Royce's bedroom, he slept deeply, medication ensuring he wouldn't wake easily. Latifah moved through the suite like a shadow, collecting only what truly belonged to her. The clothes she'd brought from Queens, her father's poetry book, the watch that hung around her neck. She left the designer dresses, the jewelry, the expensive creams and perfumes. Those had never been hers, not really. Her old suitcase waited in the back of the closet, the same one she'd arrived with 4 months ago. It seemed smaller now, shabbier against the luxury surrounding it. She packed methodically, folding each item with care. On the desk, she found a notepad embossed with the Townsend logo. The pen felt heavy in her hand as she wrote, "Royce, I can't do this anymore. Not because I don't care for you, I do, more than I thought possible. That's why I have to go. Your mother was right. This marriage has an expiration date. We're living in a beautiful dream, but dreams end. The contract remains. The money waits. The world watches. I don't want to wonder every day if what's between us is real or convenient. My mother is getting worse. She may not know me in 6 months. I need to be with her while she still might remember, not playing princess in a tower. I release you from our agreement. I don't want the money. I just want to remember who I was before I became Mrs. Townsend. I'm sorry. I love you. That's why I'm going. Latifah." She read it twice, tears blurring the ink. The words felt inadequate, impossible. How to explain the tangle of fears, the crushing weight of doubt, the terror, that everything between them would collapse when the contract ended? Better a clean break now than slow torture later. She folded the note, placed it on his pillow. One last look at his sleeping face, peaceful, unguarded. She bent to kiss his forehead, gentle enough not to wake him. "Goodbye," she whispered. The hallway stretched long and quiet, her suitcase wheels too loud on marble floors. She'd called a car service, not Royce's driver, who would surely report back. 20 minutes until it arrived. 20 minutes to leave behind this life she'd never expected to find. Behind her, a noise, the bedroom door opening. Her heart stopped. "Latifah?" Royce's voice, rough with sleep and confusion. She quickened her pace, reaching the elevator. The button glowed under her finger. "Come faster, please." Latifah, louder now, more urgent. The sound changed, not his wheelchair. Shuffling, dragging. She turned to see him gripping the wall, standing unsteadily on legs that hadn't supported his weight without assistance in 3 years. "What are you doing?" Alarm replaced her shock. "Royce, stop. You'll hurt yourself." Then stop walking away. His face contorted with effort, one hand sliding along the wall for support. "Talk to me. Please, get your chair." She moved toward him despite herself. "You can't." "I can." Another step, trembling but determined. "I will." The elevator arrived with a soft chime. She ignored it, watching in horrified fascination as he inched forward. His therapy had been progressing, yes, but he'd only managed assisted standing, brief supported steps. Nothing like this. "Please," she whispered. "You're going to fall. Then fall." 5 feet separated them now. "But I'm not letting you leave without explanation. I left a note." "I don't want a note." His jaw clenched with determination. "I want you to look me in the eyes and tell me why you're running." She should turn away, step into the elevator, end this before he hurt himself more, but her feet wouldn't move. "This isn't real," she said finally. "Us, this life. It's built on a contract that ends in 8 months. Is that what you think? Another step. His legs shook visibly now. That I'm just fulfilling a business agreement? I think we're both pretending this can last. Her voice cracked. My mother is forgetting me, Royce. She didn't know who I was yesterday. In 6 months, she might not recognize me at all. And all I could think was, what if that's when you stop recognizing me too? When the contract ends and I'm not necessary anymore. Necessary? 4 feet now. You think that's what this is about? Everyone is waiting for this to end. The words burst from her. Your staff, the board, your mother. The whole world is counting down until you're free of the gold-digging waitress. And you believe them? Not me? I don't know what to believe anymore. She clutched her suitcase handle tighter. I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself. I'm afraid of becoming someone who belongs here, only to lose it all when our time runs out. 3 feet. His face paled with effort, but his eyes remained locked on hers. There is no time limit on us, he said. The contract, the money, none of that matters. I love you, Latifa, not for a year, not until the papers expire. I love you without qualifications or expiration dates. The words hit her chest like physical blows. You've never said that before. I'm saying it now. 2 feet. I love you. I should have said it sooner. I was afraid you were staying because of the agreement. Afraid you'd leave when it ended. His left knee buckled. She dropped the suitcase, lunging forward as he fell. They collided, his weight carrying them both to the floor. His arms wrapped around her, holding tight even as pain flashed across his face from the impact. Royce, panic, flooded her. Are you hurt? Let me call. No. He held her tighter. Just stay. Please stay. She looked at him, really looked. His hair disheveled from sleep. His eyes clear and determined despite the pain. His body curled protectively around hers even as they lay awkwardly on cold marble. I'm scared, she admitted, voice small. What happens when the contract ends? Whatever we want. His hand found her face, cupped her cheek. Tear up the contract. Burn the money. Stay with me because you choose to, not because papers say you must. And my mother? We'll face that together. More doctors, better care. Whatever she needs. His thumb wiped a tear from her cheek. But don't use her as the reason to run from what scares you about us. The truth of his words cut through her defenses. She was scared, terrified of loving him completely, of building a life only to lose it. I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, she whispered. For you to realize I don't belong here. You belong with me. He pressed his forehead to hers. The where doesn't matter. They stayed on the floor, holding each other as dawn light began filtering through the windows. His legs would bruise. Her tears dried slowly. Neither moved. I've never seen you stand like that before, she said finally. I've never had something worth standing for. His lips found hers, gentle but insistent. Stay, Latifa. Not for the contract. For us. She nodded against his lips. I'll stay. Promise me something. He pulled back to see her eyes. Next time you're afraid, talk to me. Don't run. I promise. She helped him sit up, leaning against the wall. We should get you back to bed. Check for injuries. In a minute. He kept her hand in his. First, say it back. She smiled through fresh tears. I love you, Royce Townsend. Contract or no contract. Now we can go back to bed. He glanced at her abandoned suitcase. And you can unpack that. She helped him to his wheelchair, which they found abandoned in the bedroom doorway. As they moved back toward their room together, the rising sun painted the penthouse in golden light. Not the end, she realized. Just a new beginning. Sunlight flooded the bedroom when Latifa finally woke. The space beside her was empty, but warm. Royce hadn't been gone long. Her suitcase sat in the corner, still packed. The note she'd written lay crumpled on the nightstand. She showered, dressed in simple jeans and a sweater, and found Royce. In the kitchen, surprising Chef Marcus by attempting pancakes himself. Batter splattered the counter. A misshapen pancake sizzled in the pan. What are you doing? She asked from the doorway. He looked up, spatula in hand. Making breakfast, badly. Marcus watched with barely concealed horror as Royce flipped the pancake, sending batter flying. Sir, I could easily... I've got this, Marcus. Royce's determination matched the previous night's hallway struggle. Could you give us a minute? The chef retreated gratefully. Latifa moved to the counter, surveying the chaos. You've never cooked a day in your life, have you? Not successfully. He managed to slide the burnt pancake onto a plate. But I wanted to try. For you. She took the spatula gently from his hand. Let me help before you burn down the penthouse. Together they salvaged breakfast, her mixing fresh batter, him watching, with genuine curiosity as she demonstrated proper technique. They ate at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining room, knees touching as they talked. We need to address what happened, he said, setting down his fork. Not just last night, all of it. She nodded. I should have told you about my mother, about my doubts, and I should have been clearer about what I want after the contract ends. He took her hand. I want you, Latifa. Not for a year, for good. But the board, your mother, can all adjust or leave. His voice hardened. I've spent 3 years letting other people dictate my life because of this. He gestured to his wheelchair. No more. What are you saying? I'm saying let's stop pretending this is temporary. He squeezed her fingers. Move your things into our room permanently. Take my name professionally if you want it. Make changes to the penthouse. Plant roots. The concept dizzied her. What about the contract? It exists. It protects your financial future, no matter what. But it doesn't control us. He leaned forward. Let's stop living like we have an expiration date. His words unlocked something inside her. Permission to believe, to trust, to build without fear of demolition. Okay, she said simply. That afternoon, they began reconstructing their relationship on more honest foundation. Royce called Dr. Patterson directly, asking detailed questions about Isabella's condition, treatment options, experimental programs. Latifa sat beside him, their hands linked as they discussed difficult realities and possibilities. Columbia's neurology department has a research trial, Dr. Patterson explained. Limited spots, but with Mr. Townsend's connections. No, Latifa interrupted. If my mother gets in, it should be on merit, not money. Royce nodded. We'll apply through proper channels, but ensure she receives every standard treatment available in the meantime. Dr. Patterson seemed surprised by their united front. Of course. After the call, Royce studied her face. You didn't want to use my influence. Some things shouldn't be bought. She touched his cheek. I need to know we tried everything fair before using privilege. He covered her hand with his. I respect that. But remember, using resources isn't cheating. It's using tools available to help someone you love. The next morning, Royce made an announcement that shocked her. I've doubled my therapy sessions, daily instead of 3 times weekly. Why? She looked up from her coffee. Because I stood for 10 seconds in that hallway. His eyes held fresh determination. If I can do that in desperation, imagine what I could accomplish with proper training. Dr. Abernathy, his physical therapist, developed a more aggressive program. Latifa began attending every session, not as observer, but as active participant. She learned proper support techniques, encouraging without babying, challenging without pushing too hard. 2 weeks after the hallway incident, Royce took 4 consecutive steps between parallel bars without assistance. That's it, Latifa cheered from the sidelines. Just like that. When he finished, sweating and triumphant, she handed him a towel. You're incredible. I have motivation now. He pulled her close. Something worth walking toward. As Royce rebuilt his physical strength, Latifa found her own purpose blooming. The teaching certification research had sparked an idea that wouldn't let go. Caregivers need support, she explained one evening as they worked in the library. Not just money, respite, understanding, a place to breathe. What are you thinking? He looked up from his tablet. A center, 1 day a month to start. Professional staff watching patients while caregivers get massages, talk to counselors, just sleep in quiet rooms. Her hands moved animatedly. I watched my mother's caregivers burn out. I nearly burned out. There's no support system. The second wind, he said immediately. She smiled. How did you know that name? It's what you gave me. He set aside his work. How much would you need to start? That's not why I'm telling you. I don't want your money for this. Partnership isn't charity, Latifa. His voice gentled. Let me help build your dream. The way you're helping rebuild mine. She considered this new perspective. I'd need a location, staff, insurance. Done. But you run it. Your vision, your rules. Within weeks, the second wind took shape in a small storefront near Mount Sinai. Latifa interviewed staff personally, designed spaces based on her own experience, created programs she wished had existed during her mother's early diagnosis. At home, the penthouse transformed too. Elena, who had witnessed the hallway scene while pretending not to, began treating Latifah with new warmth. "These came for you, Latifah," she said one afternoon, using her first name for the first time while delivering flowers. "And the library books you requested arrived." Small shifts rippled through the staff. Marcus asked about her Portuguese recipes. James, the driver, stopped calling her Mrs. Townsend and used Miss Latifah instead. Security nodded respectfully rather than watching with suspicion. The most visible change came when Royce suggested rearranging the master suite. "It's your room, too," he insisted. "Make your mark on it." They spent a Saturday moving furniture, creating a reading nook by the window, hanging photographs of her mother in happier days. She cleared half the closet of his clothes, filled it with hers, not just the designer pieces, but comfortable favorites from her old life. That night, looking around their shared space, she felt something settle inside her. Belonging, permanence, trust. Royce watched her from the doorway, leaning on his new walking cane. "Better? Perfect." She went to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. "Thank you for fighting for us. When did someone fight for you? Share your story in the comments below." "Thank you for staying," he murmured against her hair. "For giving us a chance to build something real." 8 months still remained on their contract. The world still watched and waited. Challenges still loomed: her mother's decline, his recovery, the ever-present public scrutiny. But something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer living on borrowed time. They were building a future, one honest conversation, one difficult challenge, one shared triumph at a time. The contract had brought them together. But love, real, chosen, hard-fought love, would keep them there. March brought the first hints of spring to Manhattan. Crocuses pushed through melting snow in Central Park, and morning light lingered longer in the penthouse windows. Latifah and Royce settled into rhythms that felt less like performance and more like life. Mornings began with coffee shared in bed, strong for him, sweet for her. He'd check markets on his tablet while she read education journals, their legs tangled beneath expensive sheets. Small domesticities that neither had expected to treasure. Physical therapy at 10, he'd remind her, though she never forgot. The second WinStaff meeting at 2, she'd counter, and he'd nod, already adding it to his calendar. Their closet had transformed. His suits now shared space with her growing collection of clothes that mixed designer pieces with treasured items from her old life. Her father's poetry book sat prominently on the bedside table, his medications lined up beside her moisturizers in the bathroom. Royce's walking progressed with stubborn determination. The cane became a constant companion, though he still used the wheelchair for longer distances or difficult days. Each small victory they celebrated together, 5 continuous steps in March, 10 by early April, a full crossing of the bedroom by mid-month. "Soon you'll be running marathons," she teased one morning as he navigated from bed to bathroom without pause. "I'd settle for walking you down an aisle properly," he replied, then flushed slightly at the implication. She pretended not to notice, but the comment warmed her for hours afterward. The second wind flourished under Latifah's direction. The first official caregiver relief day filled all 20 spots, with 30 more on the waiting list. She hired nurses who understood dementia's toll, massage therapists specializing in stress relief, counselors trained in grief and ongoing loss. "You look different when you talk about the center," Royce observed one evening as they reviewed the program's financial reports. "Different how?" "Taller." He smiled. "More certain. Like you found your purpose." She considered this. "I spent so many years just surviving. Now I'm building something. It changes you. It suits you." He took her hand. The builder, the creator. Her mother's condition continued its slow decline, but Latifah faced it with new resources, both emotional and practical. Twice weekly now she visited Isabella, sometimes finding recognition, sometimes finding confusion, always finding ways to connect, even when words failed. Royce accompanied her once a month, observing the careful way she navigated her mother's changing reality. He never rushed these visits, never checked his phone, never showed discomfort. When Isabella confused him for her late husband, or a doctor, or a stranger, "You're good with her," Latifah said after one such visit. "Patient. I learned patience when I couldn't tie my own shoes after the accident." His voice held no self-pity. Some things can't be rushed. Their favorite tradition emerged unexpectedly. Sunday mornings they would take slow walks through the penthouse's rooftop garden, a space Royce had rarely used before. The first Sunday had been difficult, his legs unsteady on the stone path. The fourth Sunday, He managed the entire perimeter. By the 8th Sunday, they could complete 2 circuits before he needed rest. During these walks, they talked about everything: childhoods, dreams, fears, hopes, real conversations that built foundations for something lasting. "What happens in October?" she asked one Sunday as cherry blossoms drifted around them. The contract's end date, unspoken but ever present. He stopped walking, turned to face her fully. "What do you want to happen?" "I want to stay." The admission came easily now. "With you. Here. Building our life. Then that's what happens." He balanced on his cane, reached for her hand. "The contract becomes irrelevant. The money gets transferred as agreed, and we continue, just without the legal countdown. People will talk. Say I stayed for the payout. People already talk." He shrugged. "Let them. We know the truth." These conversations about the future grew more specific, more concrete. They discussed renovations to create a proper home office for her second wind work. They debated summer vacation options, the Hamptons house he rarely used, or Portugal to connect with her heritage. They researched experimental treatments for her mother, adaptive sports programs for his continued rehabilitation, all plans that extended well beyond October's deadline. One evening, as they prepared for a charity dinner, he watched her fasten her necklace. Her father's watch now hung from a proper gold chain, his gift for her birthday. "Move everything into our room," he said suddenly. "Not just clothes, everything that matters." She turned from the mirror. "Why now?" "Because I'm tired of pretenses, of separate spaces, of any suggestion this isn't permanent." He wheeled closer. "I want all of you here, not just physically, your books, your papers, your mess." He smiled. "Your life." She knelt before his chair, took his hands. Our life, he agreed, kissing her softly. The next day, the last of her belongings migrated from the guest suite she'd never really used. The penthouse shifted again, becoming truly theirs, not his space accommodating her, but their home reflecting both. The contract still existed. The date still approached. But like the garden they walked each Sunday, something new bloomed between them. Something that had taken root in unexpected soil and now grew stronger each day. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in late April. Royce was in the shower when his phone chimed with the urgent notification tone. Latifah, finishing her coffee at the bedroom desk, glanced at the screen. "Royce?" She called toward the bathroom. "There's an email from James marked critical, Richardson Holdings." Water shut off abruptly. Minutes later, Royce emerged in a towel, hair still dripping. His expression had hardened to something she rarely saw at home, the CEO face, all sharp edges and calculation. "What's wrong?" she asked as he scanned the message. "Thomas Richardson is making a move." His jaw tightened. He's acquired 17% of Townsend Meridian's publicly traded shares in the past week, combined with what he already owned. "That's bad. It's concerning." He set the phone down. "Richardson Holdings has been trying to absorb TM since before my father died. Thomas thinks my condition makes the company vulnerable." She watched him wheel to the closet, selecting a suit with deliberate care. Charcoal gray, his power color. "What will you do?" "Emergency board meeting. 10 a.m. He turned to her. "I need you there." "Me? I don't know anything about hostile takeovers. This isn't about business expertise." His eyes met hers. "This is about showing a united front. Richardson's team has been whispering that our marriage is a sham to satisfy my father's will, that I'm using you, that once October comes, you'll disappear with your payout and I'll lose focus again." Understanding dawned. "They're using me against you." "Trying to?" He finished buttoning his shirt. "Help me prove them wrong?" 2 hours later, Latifah sat beside Royce in Townsend Meridian's executive conference room. The glass tables stretched long enough to seat the entire 20-person board. Windows showcased Manhattan's skyline, reinforcing the power concentrated in this single room. Latifah wore a navy dress that projected both confidence and appropriateness. Not too flashy, not too dowdy. Her hair swept into a low chignon. Pearl earrings, classic Townsend style. She felt armor settling over her as board members filtered in, some nodding respectfully, others watching with thinly veiled skepticism. Margaret Chen entered last, eyebrows rising at Latifah's presence. "Family meeting today, Royce?" "My wife has every right to be here, Margaret." Royce's voice carried authority without aggression, especially given Richardson's personal attacks. James Bennett, Royce's childhood friend and chief counsel distributed folders to each seat. The numbers are concerning. Richardson has been quietly acquiring shares through 5 different subsidiaries. Combined holdings now total 23%. With the Rivera Group's 7% likely to swing his way, Margaret added. He's dangerously close to the 35% threshold needed for a board vote on acquisition. Murmurs rippled around the table. Latifah listened carefully, piecing together implications from context. Royce had explained the basics that morning. Richardson Holdings wanted to dismantle Townsend Meridian, sell off its profitable divisions, and eliminate thousands of jobs in the process. Options? Royce asked the room. For 40 minutes, strategies flew across the table. Poison pill provisions, white knight investors, legal challenges to Richardson's acquisition methods. Throughout, Royce remained calm, evaluating each suggestion with measured consideration. Latifah watched him with quiet pride. This was the man behind the husband, strategic, focused, unwavering. Wheelchair or not, he commanded the room through sheer intellectual force. The discussion grew heated when Margaret proposed selling the medical technology division, Townsend's original foundation and Royce's personal passion. It's underperforming compared to consumer products, Margaret argued. Richardson wants it gone anyway. If we sell first, we control the terms. Absolutely not. Royce's response was immediate. MedTech stays. It's not just about profit margins. This isn't time for sentimentality, Margaret countered. Your father would have. My father is dead. The words landed like stones. And while I respect his legacy, I am not him. The room fell silent. Royce glanced at Latifah, something shifting in his expression. Then, to everyone's surprise, he placed his hands on the wheelchair arms and pushed himself to standing. The collective intake of breath was audible. For most board members, this was the first time seeing Royce upright since the accident 3 years ago. He balanced carefully, one hand on the table edge, but stood firmly on his own feet. Townsend Meridian was founded to create medical technology that improves lives, he said, voice steady despite the physical effort. My grandfather built ventilators. My father developed affordable prosthetics. I expanded into accessibility innovation. That division doesn't exist for profit margins. It exists because some things matter more than quarterly reports. He took one step forward, then another, moving slowly but deliberately around the table. Thomas Richardson sees spreadsheets. I see purpose. He sees assets to strip. I see lives to improve. Another step. I see employees who've devoted careers to meaningful work. I see patients who depend on our research. James shifted as if to help, but Royce shook his head slightly. This was his moment to stand alone. I won't surrender this company's soul to boost its stock price. He completed his circle, returning to his position at the head of the table. We fight Richardson with everything we have. We remind shareholders why Townsend matters. We stand for something beyond acquisition value. The silence held as he carefully lowered himself back into his wheelchair. No one commented on the sheen of sweat on his forehead or the slight tremor in his hands. What they'd witnessed wasn't weakness. It was strength in its purest form. I move. We reject Richardson's initial approach and implement defensive measures, James said finally. All in favor? Hands rose around the table. Even Margaret's, after a moment's hesitation. 17 in favor, 3 opposed, James announced. Motion carries. The victory margin was narrow, only 3 votes, but sufficient. As the meeting adjourned, board members approached Royce with new respect in their eyes. The man who could barely sit upright after his accident had just walked a boardroom to defend his company's values. More importantly, he'd done it for something beyond himself. In the car heading home, Latifah took his hand. You stood. I needed them to see me. He looked exhausted but satisfied. All of me. They did. She squeezed his fingers. So did I. That evening, they celebrated quietly at home. No champagne or grand gestures. Just takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant, eaten in comfortable. Clothes on the balcony overlooking Central Park's spring greening. Richardson will try again, Royce acknowledged, setting aside his plate. And you'll stop him again. She curled against his side on the outdoor sofa. With the board behind you now. With you beside me, he corrected. They saw us today, really saw us. A team. The words settled between them, simple but profound. Not a contract, not an arrangement. A partnership, forged in unexpected circumstances but strengthened by choice. The battle wasn't over. Richardson Holdings would regroup, strategize, attack again. But something had shifted fundamentally within Townsend Meridian's power structure. Royce Townsend wasn't just back, he was transformed, and he wasn't standing alone. The invitation arrived by courier in early May, heavy cream envelope, embossed with the Townsend family crest, addressed to Latifah personally, not to both of them. Inside, a handwritten note on monogram stationery. Latifah, I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you privately. Tea at the plaza, Thursday at 2 p.m. Car will collect you at 1:30 if convenient. Vivian Townsend. No apology, no explanation, just the cool precision Latifah had come to expect from her mother-in-law. You don't have to go, Royce said when she showed him the note. His relationship with his mother remained strained after the post-nuptial incident. I think I should. Latifah set the invitation on the kitchen counter. Whatever she wants to say, I should hear it. I'll come with you. No. She touched his arm. She asked to see me alone. Let's respect that. Thursday arrived with perfect May weather. Warm sunshine, gentle breeze, the kind of day that made New York feel magical. Vivian's driver arrived exactly on time, holding the door with practiced deference. The Plaza Hotel stood in timeless elegance at the corner of Fifth Avenue and Central Park South. Doormen in livery, gilded everything. History in every corner. Latifah had walked past it countless times in her old life, never imagining she'd enter as anything but staff. The palm court glittered with chandeliers and silver tea services. Vivian waited at a corner table. Perfect posture, perfect hair, perfect pearls. The quintessential Manhattan matriarch, Latifah. She didn't stand, but gestured to the opposite chair. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Townsend. Latifah took her seat, arranging her sundress carefully. Not designer today, a simple blue cotton she'd had since college, paired with a white cardigan. Her choice felt deliberate, authentic. A server appeared instantly, pouring tea from a silver pot. Tiny sandwiches and pastries arranged on a tiered stand between them. Vivian waited until they were alone before speaking. I owe you an apology. The words seemed to cost her physical effort. My behavior when I brought that post-nuptial agreement was inexcusable. Latifah hadn't expected this opening. She sipped her tea, giving herself time to respond. You were protecting your son. No. Vivian's gaze was direct now. I was protecting my idea of who my son should be. There's a difference. Something had changed in the older woman. The brittle edge had softened slightly. The performative perfection remained, but beneath it, something more human showed through. Royce has changed, Vivian continued. Since the accident, I watched him retreat. Give up. Let others manage his life. She arranged her napkin precisely. Then you arrived, and suddenly he's fighting again. Standing in boardrooms, defending his company's values, building something new. He did that himself, Latifah said quietly. I just believed he could. Perhaps that was what he needed. Vivian met her eyes. Someone who saw him, not his wheelchair. The admission hung between them, honest in its simplicity. Margaret Chen called me, Vivian said. After the Richardson Holdings meeting, she described how Royce stood. How you watched him, not with pity or fear, but with pride. She paused. She said you looked at him the way I used to look at his father, before everything soured between us. Latifah set down her cup. I love him. Yes. Vivian nodded slowly. I believe you do. From her handbag, Vivian withdrew a small velvet box. This belonged to Eleanor Townsend, Royce's grandmother. My mother-in-law. She placed it on the table between them. She gave it to me when Royce was born, said it should stay with the Townsend women. Latifah opened the box carefully. Inside lay a delicate gold bracelet, intricately worked with tiny leaves and flowers. Clearly antique, clearly valuable, clearly meaningful. I can't accept this, she began. You can. Vivian's voice softened further. You should. You're a Townsend woman now, whether I initially approved or not. The gesture's significance wasn't lost on Latifah. This wasn't just jewelry. It was acceptance, acknowledgement, perhaps even the beginning of respect. May I? Vivian asked, reaching for the bracelet. Latifah extended her wrist. The older woman fastened the clasp with careful fingers, the gold warm against Latifah's skin. Thank you, Latifah said simply. I'd like to visit Isabella, Vivian said, surprising her again. Your mother. If that would be acceptable. I understand good days are becoming rarer. The offer brought unexpected tears to Latifah's eyes. She would like that. On her good days, she enjoys company, and on her difficult days, Perhaps I can sit with her while you rest. Vivian sipped her tea. I've learned something about caregiving, watching you with Royce. It's not just physical support, it's presence. They finished their tea in a new kind of silence, not the strained politeness of adversaries, but the cautious comfort of women finding unexpected common ground. The following Sunday, Vivian joined them for dinner at the penthouse. She brought photo albums from Royce's childhood, stories he'd never shared, laughter Latifah had never heard from him. When they walked her to the elevator, Vivian hesitated, then embraced Latifah briefly. "The bracelet suits you," she murmured. Eleanor would have approved. 3 generations of Townsend women, one by blood, one by marriage, one by memory, connected through a simple gold bracelet and the complicated men they had loved. Like if you believe people can change when given reason enough, not instant friendship, not perfect resolution, but a beginning, a chance for something authentic to grow where judgment had once taken root. The contract that had brought Latifah into the Townsend world continued its countdown. 5 months remained, but with each passing day, the paper that had defined their beginning mattered less. What mattered was the family they were building, unexpected, unconventional, unfinished. But theirs. The little plastic stick showed 2 lines. Latifah sat on the edge of the bathtub on a Tuesday morning in late June, staring at the pregnancy test in her hand. She'd taken it almost as an afterthought. Her period was only 5 days late, and stress often affected her cycle. Between the second wind's expansion, her mother's declining health, and Richardson Holdings' continued pursuit of Townsend Meridian, stress had become a constant companion. But there they were, 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. A baby. She took a second test, then a third. All positive. The bathroom clock showed 7:15 a.m. Royce would be in his study preparing for an 8:30 investor call. She slipped the tests into her pocket and made her way through the penthouse, each step feeling somehow different, as if her body already knew it carried something precious. His study door stood ajar. She knocked softly. "Come in," he called, not looking up from his computer. For a moment, she just watched him, brow furrowed in concentration, fingers moving rapidly over the keyboard, completely absorbed in the work that drove him. How would he react? They'd never discussed children. The possibility had seemed remote given their unusual beginning and his physical challenges. "Royce." Her voice came out softer than intended. He glanced up, his expression shifting immediately to concern. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She moved closer, heart pounding. "But something's changed." She placed the 3 tests on his desk, side by side. His eyes dropped to them, narrowed in confusion, then widened in understanding. "You're pregnant?" The question barely a whisper. "Yes." "How?" He stopped, shook his head. "I mean, I know how, but I thought with my injury." The doctor said reduced fertility, not impossible. She watched his face carefully. "Are you upset?" "Upset?" He looked up, eyes shining with something she couldn't quite identify. His voice caught. "I don't know what I am." He wheeled back from the desk, creating space between them. The distance sent a chill through her chest. "This wasn't planned," he said finally. "No. The contract still has 4 months." "I know." He rubbed his hand across his face, and she realized he was trembling slightly. "A baby changes everything." "Yes." She knelt beside his chair, needing to be closer. "Royce, talk to me, please. I never thought I'd be a father." His voice roughened. "After the accident, I just assumed, and then the contract marriage, and now, are you saying you don't want this?" She kept her voice steady despite the fear curling through her. "No." His response came quickly, fiercely. "That's not what I'm saying at all." His hand reached for hers, grip almost painful in its intensity. "I'm saying I'm terrified. What kind of father can I be? I can barely stand for 10 minutes. What if I can't pick up my child? What if I can't run after them? What if you love them completely?" She interrupted. "What if you teach them compassion and determination? What if you show them that overcoming challenges is part of being human?" His eyes searched hers. "You're not afraid?" "I'm terrified too," she admitted. "My mother won't know her grandchild. I never had a father past age 12. I don't know how to balance motherhood with the second wind, but—" She placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "This is our baby, something we created together, something that wasn't in any contract." Slowly, the tension in his face eased. His thumb moved gently across her abdomen. "A baby," he repeated, voice filled with wonder now. Our baby, she confirmed. He pulled her into his lap, holding her carefully as if she might break. How far along? I don't know yet. 6 weeks, maybe? I need to see a doctor. The best in New York, he said immediately, CEO mode activating. Today. I'll cancel my meetings. She laughed, relief flooding through her. It doesn't have to be today. The baby's been growing for weeks without medical supervision. One more day won't matter. Every day matters now. His hand remained protectively over her stomach. Everything matters more. He kissed her then, gentle and reverent. When they parted, she saw tears in his eyes matching her own. I love you, he whispered. Both of you. 3 simple words that bridge the gap between their contracted beginning and this unexpected, beautiful future. A family. Their family. Blood pressures elevated again. Doctor, Melissa Warner frowned at the readings. 140/90. That's higher than I'd like to see at 26 weeks. Latifah shifted uncomfortably on the examination table. August heat pressed against the windows of the Upper East Side medical office, matching the persistent pressure she'd been feeling in her head for days. I've been resting more, she protested, and I cut back hours at the second wind, but not the stress. Doctor, Warner made notes in her tablet. Your body doesn't distinguish between physical exertion and emotional strain. Both affect your blood pressure, which affects the baby. Royce, who hadn't missed a single appointment, leaned forward in his wheelchair. What are our options? For now, modified bed rest, limited work, remote only, daily blood pressure monitoring. The doctor's expression softened slightly. And genuine stress reduction. Not just fewer hours, but less worry. Latifah nodded, though worry had become her constant companion. Her mother now recognized her only 1 visit out of 3. The Richardson Holdings situation had escalated into a proxy battle for board seats. And their baby girl, they'd learned the gender 3 weeks ago, measured slightly small on the last ultrasound. I'll make sure she follows orders, Royce promised as they left the office. In the car heading home, he took her hand. Let James handle the Richardson problem. Elena can coordinate with the second wind staff. Your only job is growing our daughter. And my mother? Latifah asked quietly. Pain flickered across his face. We'll arrange for you to see her at the penthouse. Dr. Patterson said moving her temporarily shouldn't worsen her condition. She nodded, grateful for his understanding. I'm sorry about all this. For what? Creating our child? He squeezed her fingers. Nothing to apologize for. That afternoon, Latifah rested in their bedroom while Royce attended his physical therapy session 2 floors below in the home gym. His progress had accelerated dramatically since learning about the pregnancy. Determination to walk beside his child's stroller, driving him through increasingly demanding exercises. She dozed lightly, one hand resting on her growing belly, when Elena knocked urgently. Ms. Latifah, come quickly. Mr. Townsend has fallen. Heart racing, she followed Elena to the elevator, down to the gym level. The scene inside froze her blood. Royce on the floor, physical therapist applying. Pressure to a gash on his forehead, blood staining the exercise mat beneath him. What happened? She rushed forward, ignoring Dr. Warner's orders about staying calm. He was attempting unassisted steps between bars, the therapist explained. His knee gave out. He hit his head on the equipment corner. I'm fine, Royce insisted, though his pallor suggested otherwise. Just a cut. But when he tried to sit up, he swayed dangerously, eyes unfocused. Hospital, Latifah decided. Now, the next hours passed in a blur of urgent activity. Ambulance, emergency room, CT scans, blood pressure cuffs squeezing her arm while doctors examined her husband in another room. Mild concussion, the neurologist finally reported. 6 stitches for the laceration. We'd like to keep him overnight for observation. And her blood pressure needs monitoring too, added the obstetrician who'd been called in. Pre-eclampsia risk is significant with these numbers. That night they shared a hospital room at New York Presbyterian. Royce. In the standard bed, Latifah in one brought from the maternity floor. His head bandaged, her arm attached to an automatic blood pressure monitor that inflated hourly. Some pair we make, he said softly in the dimmed light. This wasn't exactly my plan for wooing you tonight. Despite everything, she smiled. Your romantic gestures need work. I was pushing too hard. His voice grew serious. Trying to prove I could be the father our daughter deserves. You already are. She reached across the space between their beds, finding his hand. Perfect isn't the standard, Royce. Present is. He nodded, wincing slightly at the movement. The doctor said another inch to the right, and the impact could have caused serious brain injury. The reality of how close they'd come to disaster hung between them. She'd almost lost him to his determination to be what he thought she needed. No more heroics, she said firmly. Promise me, our daughter needs you, however you come. In the chair with the cane, standing, sitting, she just needs you here. I promise. He squeezed her fingers. And you need to promise something too. No more carrying everyone else's burdens. The stress isn't good for either of you. I promise. They were released the following afternoon with strict instructions, 24 hours of complete rest for him, continued blood pressure monitoring for her. James drove them home in silence, both absorbing how quickly their world had nearly shattered. At the penthouse, Elena had prepared the master bedroom with extra pillows, water carafes, and the monitoring equipment the doctor had prescribed. That evening, as they lay side by side in careful stillness, their daughter kicked vigorously against Latifah's ribs. Someone's expressing an opinion, Royce murmured, hand resting on the movement. She's saying her parents need to be smarter. Latifah covered his hand with hers. Less stubborn, more careful, smart girl. He smiled slightly. Wonder where she gets that. The accident changed something fundamental in their approach to the pregnancy, to each other, to the future. The relentless drive that characterized them both softened into something more sustainable. Not surrender, adaptation. Royce continued therapy, but with modified goals, stability over distance, safety over speed. Latifah delegated more responsibility at the second wind, allowing others to carry what she'd insisted on shouldering alone. Together they prepared for their daughter with a new understanding that perfection wasn't the goal. Presence was, persistence was, love was. The contract that had once defined their relationship now seemed like a distant memory, a legal document that had brought together two people who were creating something no contract could ever contain. A family built on choice rather than obligation. Another contraction coming, the nurse warned, watching the monitor. Breathe through it, Latifah. 14 hours into labor, Latifah gripped the bed rails, face contorted with effort. October 9th, 3 weeks before her due date, 5 days before the contract's official end. Their daughter had decided to write her own timeline. You're doing beautifully, Royce murmured, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. He hadn't left her side since her water broke at breakfast, abandoning an important board meeting without hesitation. 9 centimeters, Dr. Warner announced after checking her progress. Almost there, almost there. The words echoed through Latifah's exhausted mind. They'd almost lost this, all of it, so many times. The night she'd nearly left. The post-nuptial confrontation, Royce's accident, her blood pressure crisis. Yet here they were, in New York Presbyterian's labor and delivery unit, about to become parents. Another contraction seized her, stronger than before. She cried out, squeezing Royce's hand with bruising force. I can't, she gasped when it eased. I'm so tired. You can, he countered, absolute faith in his voice. You're the strongest person I know. In the corner of the room, a special visitor watched with tears streaming down her face. Isabella Santos was having a remarkably good day, one of her last, according to hospice nurses. She'd recognized Latifah immediately that morning, had understood she was about to become a grandmother. My brave girl, she murmured in Portuguese. Just like when you were born. Vivian Townsend sat beside her, an unlikely friendship formed through weekly visits and shared concern for the younger generation. She handed Isabella a tissue, then took one for herself. 10 centimeters, Dr. Warner announced. Time to push. What followed tested every reserve of Latifah's strength. Each push drained her further. Each rest period brought less recovery, but Royce remained steady, his voice anchoring her when pain threatened to pull her under. She's crowning, the doctor said finally. One more big push. Latifah gathered her remaining strength, bearing down with everything she had left. A burning sensation, intense pressure, then sudden relief as their daughter slipped into the world at 7:42 p.m., announcing her arrival with a powerful cry. She's perfect. Dr. Warner placed the tiny squirming body on Latifah's chest. Congratulations. Latifah stared in wonder at the dark-haired infant, skin still slick. With birth, face scrunched in outrage at the cold, bright world. Hello, Tabia, she whispered. We've been waiting for you. Royce leaned close, one hand gently cradling their daughter's head. His eyes held awe, humility, fierce love. "She's incredible," he managed, voice thick with emotion. "Just like her mother." Isabella approached the bed with Vivian's assistance, both grandmothers witnessing the miracle with matching expressions of joy. "3 generations," Isabella said clearly, a moment of lucidity illuminating her face. "My mother would be proud." Vivian adjusted the gold bracelet on her wrist, the one that would someday pass to Tabia. 4 generations of strong women, she corrected gently. As hospital staff moved efficiently around them, the new family remained in their bubble of wonder. Contract deadlines, corporate battles, medical challenges, all receded before the simple, profound reality of their daughter's existence. Tabia Isabel Townsend, 7 pounds 3 ounces, hadn't been part of any business arrangement. She represented something far more valuable than the $1 billion that would transfer in 5 days' time. She was love made visible. Commitment incarnate. Their most important agreement, written not on paper but in shared DNA and joined hearts. When Royce kissed Latifah's forehead, then their daughter's, no words were needed. The contract that had brought them together had fulfilled its purpose, not as written, but as transformed by choices made daily, hourly, in moments big and small. The paper would expire. Their love wouldn't. Sunlight dappled through autumn leaves, casting golden patterns across the grass in Central Park. White chairs formed a small semicircle around a picnic blanket where Tabia Isabel Townsend, dressed in a pale yellow dress with tiny flowers, attempted to stand by gripping her mother's fingers. "Almost there," Latifah encouraged, steadying her daughter's wobbly legs. "You've got this, little one." October 9th, 1 year since Tabia's arrival, had rewritten everything they thought they knew about love and family. 1 year of midnight feedings, first smiles, tentative crawling, and hearts expanding beyond measure. Royce stood a few feet away, iPhone raised to capture the moment, not in his wheelchair, not with his cane. Standing unassisted, weight balanced evenly, smile wider than the park itself. "Ready for cake?" Elena approached, carrying a small homemade confection decorated with a single candle. After 2 years in the Townsend household, she'd graduated from formal housekeeper to something more like family, the trusted aunt who knew exactly how to soothe Tabia's fussiest moments. "Let's gather everyone," Royce said, slipping the phone into his pocket. The group assembled was small but meaningful. Marcus and his daughter Lily, now a regular playmate for Tabia. James and his husband Michael, unofficial uncles who spoiled the baby shamelessly. 3 staff members from the Second Wind, which had expanded to 3 locations across New York City. Dr. Abernathy, whose physical therapy guidance had helped Royce achieve what many had deemed impossible. Vivian arrived last, elegant as always, but softer somehow. The past year had gentled her edges, transformed her from adversary to advocate. She carried a small gift wrapped in silver paper, the traditional Townsend first birthday locket that had been passed down for generations. Isabella's empty chair sat decorated with her favorite flowers. She had slipped away peacefully 3 months after Tabia's birth, on a day when clarity had blessed her one final time. She'd held her granddaughter, whispered Portuguese lullabies, and told Latifah how proud she was. It was the goodbye Latifah had feared she'd never get, a final gift of recognition before the disease took her completely. 1 year ago today, Royce began, addressing their small gathering. "Our lives changed forever. Some of you were with us at the hospital. Some of you helped us navigate those first terrifying weeks of parenthood." Light laughter rippled through the group. "All of you supported us on a journey that began with a contract but transformed into something no legal document could ever contain." He turned to Latifah, who now held Tabia on her hip. "This exact spot is where we renewed our vows, where I promised to choose you every day. Now we're back, celebrating the most beautiful result of that choice." Latifah smiled through gathering tears. "From business arrangement to family. Not the path either of us expected. The best journeys rarely follow the map," Vivian added, surprising everyone with her sentimentality. "Sometimes getting lost leads to better destinations." They sang happy birthday as Tabia stared in fascination at the single candle. Royce and Latifah helped her blow it out together, prompting applause from their friends. Then came cake, most of which ended up on Tabia's face, and presents opened with parental help. As afternoon sun began its descent, casting longer shadows across the grass, Royce stepped away from the group. He walked slowly to the edge of the bow bridge, the exact spot where he'd waited for Latifah during their vow renewal ceremony. She joined him moments later, Tabia drowsy against her shoulder. Remembering? Marveling, he corrected. 1 year ago I could barely stand without assistance. 2 years ago, I thought my life would be defined by what I'd lost. 3 years ago, I didn't know you existed. She leaned into his side, and his arm came around her shoulders naturally. And now? Now I know life isn't measured in what you have or what you've lost. His voice deepened with emotion. It's measured in what you choose every day, even when choosing is hard. Tabia stirred, reaching one chubby hand toward her father. He took her from Latifa's arms, balancing his daughter with the confidence of a man who'd fought for this ability. Dada, Tabia said clearly, her newest and favorite word. That's right, little one. He kissed her forehead. I'm here. Always will be. From their vantage point on the bridge, they could see their friends clearing. The picnic area, packing leftover cake, gathering scattered baby toys. Not employees or staff or obligations. Family, chosen, created, built one relationship at a time. Latifa reached into her pocket and removed a folded paper, the original contract that had brought them together, now expired, meaningless. Should we? She asked, holding it over the water. Royce nodded. Together they released the paper, watching it drift down to the surface, then slowly dissolve and disappear into the current. Some agreements were meant to end. Others, the ones written on hearts rather than paper, were just beginning. Evening settled over Manhattan, city lights blinking to life against deepening blue. In the penthouse kitchen, Tabia sat on the center island, safely corralled by pillows and her mother's watchful eye. At 14 months, she'd become a tiny force of nature, curious, determined, joyful, in ways that transformed the once formal space into a home filled with laughter. Ba ba ba, she chanted, banging a wooden spoon against an overturned pot. Dumb, dumb. That's right, sweet girl. It's a drum. Latifa chopped vegetables for dinner, occasionally dancing to her daughter's arrhythmic percussion. The simple domesticity of the moment felt like treasure, ordinary magic built from extraordinary circumstances. Royce appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame to watch them. His day had been long, another round with Richardson Holdings, whose persistence remained impressive if unwelcome. But the tension of boardrooms and legal maneuvers melted away at the sight before him. His wife, no longer defined by contract but by choice, humming Portuguese lullabies while preparing dinner. His daughter, dark curls bouncing as she explored the musical potential of kitchen equipment. The life he'd never dared imagine possible after his accident. Dada. Tabia spotted him, arms lifting immediately for pickup. Dada dom. I hear your drum, little musician. He crossed to the island, lifting her with practiced ease. Were you helping Mama with dinner? Helping is a generous interpretation, Latifa laughed, setting down her knife to greet him with a kiss. More like creative percussion accompaniment. He settled Tabia on his hip, her small hand patting his face in delighted recognition. Every day brought new developments, new words, new skills, new expressions. That combined her mother's determination with his analytical focus. The second Windboard meeting went well, Latifa reported, returning to her cooking. The 4th location is approved. Brooklyn this time. I never doubted it. He moved beside her, one arm still holding Tabia, the other wrapping around Latifa's waist. The Richardson situation is contained for now. We've secured enough proxy votes to block the next attempt. They shared these daily updates, his corporate battles, her expanding caregiver centers, with equal interest and support. Partnership in its truest form, built on respect that had grown from the most unlikely beginning. I received our annual contract today, she said casually, stirring sauce on the stove. Contract? From the lawyer. Our marriage contract. She smiled at his confusion. The one we signed ourselves last October. Remember? Understanding dawned. On the day the original contract had expired, the day the $1 billion had transferred to her account, they had created a new document, not legally binding, not financially motivated, simply a promise to choose each other for another year, and another, as long as both wished to renew. Ah, that contract. He grinned, setting Tabia back on her pillow island with her improvised drum. The important one. It needs signatures. She nodded toward an envelope on the counter. If you're still interested in renewing. He turned her fully into his arms. I believe my exact words last year were, until the stars burn out. That's quite a commitment, Mr. Townsend. I'm quite committed, Mrs. Townsend. Tabia banged her pot drum enthusiastically, providing soundtrack to their moment. They laughed, foreheads touching in the comfortable intimacy of shared parenthood and partnership. "Still choosing you," he murmured, the phrase that had become their private renewal. "Always yours," she replied, completing their ritual. Later, after dinner and Tabia's bedtime, they stood together at the great room windows. The city spread before them, infinite lights against darkness, each representing lives and stories as complicated as their own. "Sometimes I still can't believe this," Latifa admitted, leaning back against his chest. "From that diner in Queens to here, from business arrangement to this family we've built, I used to think home was an address." His arms tightened around her. "Then I thought it was this penthouse. Now I know it's wherever you and Tabia are." She turned in his embrace. "Even if we'd stayed in my old apartment in Queens, even if we lived in a cardboard box." He brushed hair from her face. "Though I admit I prefer indoor plumbing." Her laughter joined the comfortable sounds of their home, the baby monitor's soft white noise, the dishwasher's quiet hum, the familiar creaks of a space lived in and loved. The contract that had brought them together had fulfilled its purpose in ways neither could have anticipated. Money had changed hands as agreed. Legal obligations had been met. But the real value hadn't been financial. It had been finding each other, building a family, learning that love wasn't grand gestures or perfect circumstances. Love was choosing each other every day, especially on the hard days. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment with your thoughts, and share it with someone who needs to believe in love today. Subscribe for more stories about love that chooses to fight.